There used to be,
Hmm.
not way out at the road.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Chuck Taroni, the Conservation Administrator with the Conservation Administrator, consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and allowing us to adhere to social distancing requirements during this COVID-19 crisis. The Town of Reading Conservation Commission's meeting is being held virtually via Zoom for audio and video participation of the Conservation Commission, applicants, and their representatives, and the public. During the meeting, myself or the chair will unmute commissioners, applicants, representatives, and members of the public individually. During the conservation meeting, the chair will be the only one to permit anyone to share video. These controls are in place to ensure that tonight's meeting is safe and effective. At this time, Vice Chair Moore will conduct a roll call vote to ensure that all members are present and can hear.
Excuse me, before we do, I haven't seen the recording little box. Are we actually recording it?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we record after all the boilerplate stuff is finished, but I'll turn it on right now.
Okay.
Right, and it looks like John Sullivan has made it. Yes, John Sullivan's here. So we do have
Recording in progress.
And let me do the roll call in the order that I see people on my screen. Andrew.
Andrew Drubin, present, member.
Joe.
Joe Kernahan, a member present.
Brian.
Brian Bowe, member present.
John.
John Sullivan, member present.
And Martha Moore, vice chair, and I am going to be chairing this meeting in place of Nika Scanlon tonight. And I'm present.
Thank you, everyone. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. So be aware that other folks may be able to see you. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by this recording. All of the material for this meeting are available on the Conservation Division site, and I recommend that the commission members and the public follow the agenda as posted on the Town of Reading website, unless otherwise noted. However, because this meeting is being conducted remotely, I advise applicants in particular that the commission cannot see or discuss documents which have not been previously posted. Information may, however, be presented orally. Similarly, members of the public are encouraged to provide written public comment, but should understand that not all applicants nor the commission members will be able to see any written comments during the course of this meeting. Before we get started on tonight's agenda, I'm going to cover some ground rules for clear conduct of our business to ensure that accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. After commissioners make their remarks, and these remarks have been addressed by the applicant, the chair will afford the public comment as follows. The chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify themselves by name. Once the chair has a list of public commentators, the chair will call on each by name and afford them 4 minutes for any comment. The applicants may be requested to respond by the chair. After public comment, the chair will once again go down the list of commissioners, inviting each one by name to provide any further comment, questions, or motions. Please hold off until your name is called. Finally, each vote taken during this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. That's what I have. Chair Moore, Vice Chair Moore.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is routine resurfacing and road repair. And do we have some DPW folks here that you want to admit? I see Ryan Percival.
Just me tonight, thank you.
Okay. Okay, let me read the blurb about it. Open the public hearing on a request for determination of applicability filed by Ryan Percival, Reading Engineering Department under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1, for the routine resurfacing, maintenance, and road repair of 10 roadways consisting of approximately 1.8 miles. Portions of the work are within a 100-foot buffer zone and 200-foot riverfront. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. 01867, and on the Conservation Division page under Current Projects. Map various, lot various, RGB file number RDA 2022-4. All right. Brian, do you want to fill us in on what's up?
I can certainly take it from here if you don't mind me sharing my screen, Martha.
Sounds good. Please do.
Thank you. I'm going to jump right into probably the map, and I can start from there. And I think everyone has heard this pitch before. Can everyone see my screen there?
We can now. Yep.
Okay. So what we're looking at here is the map that was presented in your packet and part of the filing there. And this is just a general overview of the work that we're proposing for this year's paving work. As you can see, what's in the red is what we call reclaim work, which is basically pulverizing all the road right in place, grading it down, compacting it, and paving over it in a binder and top course. In the blue is a mill and overlay, which is exactly that. You were just milling off 2 inches of asphalt and then putting back 2 inches of asphalt in place. Out of this year's project, we have 6 roads that are going to be milled and overlaid. Of those 6 roads, 1 road in particular, which is Lowell Street, particularly right around here, is within the buffer zone area. And then we have, out of the reclaim roads, 4 roads, and one of those roads, which would be Clover Circle, which is in the buffer zone in this area here. Everything else is either very close or not within the area. Within these areas, we take particular, caution as far as erosion control, silt fences as needed, and certainly on all these projects we do silt sacks within the in the catch basins. It doesn't matter whether or not they're in the buffer zone or not. I will just zoom in on just the areas in particular and that we're focusing in on. Clover Circle it's within Clover Circle, but you can see this buffer zone. It from Haverhill Street kind of kicks over into that area. Everything's in the confines of the paved surface area. So it's pretty small section. I think there might only be 2 basins on the end that we have to deal with. And then the area in question. Not reloading there for a minute. Lowell Street in particular, we're looking at this area here. Let me see if this will reload if I, this area in particular here is where we're looking at, where we're in that jurisdictional buffer zone. If budget allows, we would like to go to Grove Street. However, right now under the current program and budget that we have, we're going to Bond Street. But just in case we have enough money that allows, we showed it going all the way to Grove Street, so we can just show that to the commission. So it's so we're all set, ready to go if we have enough money and the bids come in appropriately. That's pretty straightforward. If anyone has any questions, I can certainly go over any part of the paving that they have questions for. Chuck always comes out before we start the work, and we go over these areas to just make sure that all the erosion control is set in place. When we have pre-construction meetings, at least on the last one, and I think ones before that, Chuck has been at those pre-construction walkthrough meetings as well. And it's really kind of straightforward. We do this every year with the commission. So.
Does anybody on the commission have questions for Mr. Percival? John?
I just had one quick question that jumped out when I was looking at the narrative that you sent out. Again, the section for straw wattles, it says, at the edge of the work area, a minimum of 50 feet beyond the limits of the buffer zone. Are we only using straw wattles if we're more than 50 feet from the buffer zone, or what happens if we're closer than that 50 feet?
I think the way it generally works is if we're within that buffer zone area, we're going to go probably an extension of 50 feet beyond that, and that's sort of the point of where we walk it with Chuck, and we sort of determine where those limits are, if they need to be extended a little bit further or not further. We did that in particular down on Grove Street with the last project, and that's how those limits were determined, at least for the straw wattles.
So if the work is being done within 50 feet of the buffer zone, where do the straw wattles go? If the work is 30 feet from the buffer zone?
I'd say
it says here that it would be put with a minimum of 50 feet. So if you're less than 50 feet, it would be with 50 feet with outside the buffer zone, inside the buffer zone. So we'll extend it an additional 50 feet beyond.
I think we're talking about some sort of typing, some wordsmithing.
Maybe it's yeah, I'd have to go through that narrative. I think I'm picking up on what you're saying, John. The intent would be that we extend beyond a little bit both ways from the buffer zone area that we're in. So, and we're picking it up just to make sure that we're putting those wattles out in the correct areas. And again, Chuck's out there doing these before construction inspections to make sure that they're to the extent that they should be.
Okay.
So let me just summarize what I think I've heard. Along the edge of the road through the entire buffer zone area, plus an additional 50 feet beyond the buffer zone, is where the straw wattles will be placed.
Yes, generally speaking, that's correct.
Okay.
We've had extended those before, depending on how the topography works out, and maybe we need to pick up a little bit more depending on that site walk. And this similar too is if we have the ability to reduce those because we have a wall or something like that that would restrict erosion.
Okay, are you all set, John?
Yeah, I think
I'll pay attention to that, John, and fix that for the next go around.
Okay.
I apologize.
No problem.
All right, Brian, you have your hand up.
Yeah. So a couple of questions. The first one is, we're just talking about the 50 feet beyond the buffer. So down lower in the map where you have some red and blue, looks like those are within, close to the buffer. So are you going to do the same kind of straw wattling there to protect it, or not?
So again, this is the reason why we definitely show. I don't know why this is it's not behaving for me, but we'll just go the slow route. They're technically outside the area, and again, this is based off a GIS overlay when we're doing these, so they're not exactly accurate. So that's why we show it all. We can certainly go out there with Chuck and take a look and see if we need to have erosion control in that area.
Right, so I realize that it's outside the buffer,
Yep.
which is why you focused on Lowell Street, but I want to understand why the 50 feet, Because if 50 feet is some important magic number, then the streets down there certainly would seem to be within the 50 feet. So why wouldn't they be covered under the same umbrella?
And the honest answer would be that they're not in your jurisdictional area. So if we're not working within that buffer zone area, then that additional 50 feet extending beyond for erosion control wouldn't really apply there. But that being said, again, that's why we show all the roads, not just the ones that, we feel as though are touching or within the buffer zone area. So we can take a look at those with Chuck to see if we need to have any sort of control measures up in those areas.
Okay,
Regardless of whether they're in the buffer and
okay,
anything
good.
like that.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Next question I have has to do with cleanup post-construction. I think anybody who used the town forest this past year was well aware that a lot of the material stayed there afterwards for quite some time. What's the decision criteria as far as when things are cleaned up?
So that's a good question. Great observation. I've had this conversation with Chuck, so he sort of knows a little bit more of the background. What I can tell you is we were aware that it was out there for an extended period of time, a little bit longer than we would have liked as well. The contractor didn't have a chance to get out there in a timely fashion, and we've canceled contract under that contract with the current contractor at this time. So that's probably as much of an answer as I can give you at that time for that. But generally speaking, the area will be cleaned up as soon as we're confident that we don't have any sort of erosion issues out there. And then as soon as Chuck's confident that it can be pulled up. So that's usually how it happens. It just didn't happen in a timely manner this year.
So my question then would be, it seems like there would be a lesson learned to have some language in the contract giving you a little more control over when they have to clean up, right? Something saying, at the direction of DPW, this needs to be taken up quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. It is currently already in the contract. We do have language. They're supposed to respond in a timely fashion. Again, contract wasn't complete, and the contractor is no longer under contract with the town. So
I'm not worried about the last contractor. I'm thinking about the next.
We have the language in place exactly as you're saying to allow us the manner to do that. It just wasn't done in a timely fashion.
And is it more detailed? Does it actually say something like in a timely fashion, or do you actually put?
It's at the direction of the engineer, which is at any point that I direct them to remove the items, they're to be removed in an appropriate manner and in a timely fashion. So, if I tell them to remove them and they say we'll be there within a week and it's reasonable, then that's fine. So, or vice versa, if they're on site, they can remove them in a day, then that's fine as well. But the language is in there.
All right. That's all I have, Martha.
Okay, John, you have your hand up again?
Sorry, that's still up from the last time.
Okay, Joe or Andrew, did you guys have anything you wanted to add?
I don't think I have anything to add.
Okay, and the one thing I wanted to note is I'd love to also see some language about flushing of hydrants, because I remember there was a issue on Mill Street when that road was repaved, and something happened with the hydrants, and they were pouring water out right into the wetland off of Mill Street, up near the north end of town. So I'd love to see dewatering bags or something like that to prevent erosion if they do anything like that in this construction project. And maybe Chuck has more ideas about what language that should be or something else. Go for it, Chuck.
Yeah, so I would ask that Ryan, if he has a direct discharge within the 100-foot buffer, clause in there somehow that it needs to be, the velocity needs to be dissipated and maybe into a bag, maybe into something else. But certainly we all remember what happened on Mill Street. I was going to let the commission know that even though these streets and the narrative said that they go out and they put in erosion control and it's yay amount plus an additional 50 feet, that these are all to be decided on site when we do our window survey. And why that's important is because some of these areas have curbing and there's no way that erosion control is needed. It's just a waste. And, it's just more product that doesn't need to be, in the dump or wherever it ends up. So we do look at each site. They're willing to take me any of these places that I need. And we try to put down the appropriate amount and the appropriate area. And then that's been working over the past years. If I said I want it, 200 feet beyond the wetland for some reason, and I would get that from the engineering department also. Usually what ends up happening is we put less out than kind of came up in the discussion tonight. And it's more of a surgical strike than just lopping 150 feet of, straw wattle out there. So certainly if the project comes up and you see a spot that we've missed or doesn't look right, or for some reason, just get an email to me and I'll pass it on to Ryan. I did want to let you know that the cleanup is an issue in the years past that I've been told that some of the contractors clean it up all at once. Some of them clean it up as they go. So it's always kind of a different thing. But Grove Street was well beyond, I think the pavers weren't even in town anymore. So that's why it kind of raised a flag with me. The other spot that I've checked out in the past is the tree row sometimes gets a little messed up and it gets eroded and cut into by the blades of the machines or something like that. So those have been repaired also. And in the past, what's happened is I've just let them know the streets that I'm talking about, and that kind of work where they're reseeding and putting down loom and raking it out and then reseeding seems to happen on several streets all at once. It's not just a one street. I've made a comment about one street. They're not running out and doing that. There's more or less towards the end of the project, and that team's going to go out and take care of all the areas. So that's what I know about the project. Generally, it's worked well. We haven't had many insurmountable problems, and I think that it works because the DPW team and the conservation team has been together for a long time, more than 10 years. So I think that's one of the reasons. That's all I have.
Okay. Is there any members of the public that wanted to comment on this? If you do, please use the reaction function and the raise hand function in the reaction button at the bottom of your screen so that I'll be able to see that you have your hand raised. Seeing none, I guess this is an RDA, so I'll accept a motion we're looking for a negative determination for this RDA.
I'll move that we issue a negative determination of applicability for the routine resurfacing and road repair RDA, which is RDA number 2022-4.
I'll second that.
Okay, let's vote in the order I called on you before.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. 5-0, it passes. Okay, anything else on this one?
All right, Ryan, thank you. I'll get that to you next week.
Thank you.
And let me know when we need to do the drive-by window survey.
Just so you know, we're opening up bids on the 12th of May, I believe, if that's the Thursday. Or the 11th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
I appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks. Okay, next on our agenda is a brief discussion with the Matera Community Garden Group, and that's Kathy Zeke is here representing them. Do you have anybody else with you, Kathy?
Yes, Ellen Rockefeller is here this evening. She's joined us a little while back, but this is the first time that she's been to one of these meetings. So she is Ellen in the screen that I'm looking at.
Okay,
Nice to meet you.
thank you, Ellen.
Yes, and I'm told that we have 5 minutes, so I am going to try to overcome my Texas background and talk fast. I think that we have seen and discussed much of the information that we have on the fencing. We're here this evening to ask for formal approval for perimeter fencing for phase 1 of the Reading Community Garden at Matera Cabin. The goal of the fencing is to discourage four-legged pests from coming in and helping themselves to the wonderful stuff that's being grown in the garden. So Chuck, do you have the slides to show?
Sure.
This is just, I captured mostly the pictures that we've looked at before, just so that we have them in front of us. When the slides come up, you'll see the first one is the site plan that Ryan did earlier and that we've looked at a couple of times.
Sorry,
Yes.
give me a second. I'll get them.
Okay.
Shouldn't be an issue. Yeah.
Okay. Just to talk a little bit to what you're going to see. Again, you've seen it before. It's the site plan that Ryan did that shows where the beds are going to be laid out roughly on that first terrace above the parking lot. As I'm sure you recall, there are 16 4x8 beds. And that's the area that we'll be fencing. So it's about 340 linear feet. And the fencing that we're looking at is a mesh fencing. It's called rabbit fencing in some of the materials. And so that's because the photo that we have has a little rabbit sitting there watching. I keep referring to it as rabbit fencing. It has graduated sizes of mesh so that it deters a number of different kinds of pests, 40 inches high roughly, and it will run the perimeter of that first level. The other thing that we are planning to add to that and that we would like your approval to do is to put in 6-foot T-stakes roughly every 5 feet. And from those stakes, we'll run fishing line at 5.5 or so feet, like deer chest height, to deter deer in particular. And it's been suggested that we tie some sort of ribbon around the fishing line at intervals so that the deer are better able to see the fishing line. The goal is to discourage them, so anything that will help there will be fantastic. One of the things that I think this group, we've talked about with this group, is that there will be some seeing what works well and what we may need to do a little bit differently during this first year, because we're just not totally sure who's going to try to visit and the effectiveness of the posts, the fencing. I'm looking at notes here. There will be 2 gates, which will be roughly the same height as the fence. We're looking at chain link gates for a similar kind of look, with the latches that are fairly easy for the gardeners to move up and down. They will not be locking at this point, but we wanted to have one at each end. Let's see. The exact placement of everything will depend, once we get in and actually start trying to put the posts in the ground, we may run into some ledge, or we may run into some large stones under the surface of the dirt that we didn't see before. But DPW has been through there, and we feel like anything that was a major issue, we're either aware of it, Chuck's aware of it, or it's not going to cause an issue for us. Let's see. I think those are the points to make. And I think I did them without, yep. That's it.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you for being so concise. And we had a thorough discussion last time, so I think people had a chance to ask questions. I do have one question. Is the fishing line going to be just one strand of fishing line at 5.5 feet, or will there be like tiers of fishing line?
I think the idea is to do it just one strand.
Right.
Should that prove to be insufficient, we may try to go back and run another strand. I am sincerely hopeful that it's not going to be a major problem, that will solve the problem, that it will be discouraging enough for the deer.
All right, so I think I would like to suggest that we approve the plan with the one fishing line, but allowing for possibility of adding another or third fishing line as needed, so that you don't have to come back to us and ask permission to add another strand.
Great, thank you.
Does anybody on the commission have any other questions that have not already been answered? Are there any members of the public that are here tonight that have questions? Please use the raise hand button under the reactions. Okay, Chuck, did you have any questions?
No, yeah, all my questions have to do with the purchases we have to get through. Hopefully Kathy will have some time for me tomorrow. So
The story of our lives this last week, finding
please.
exactly what we need, where we need it, when we need it.
Yeah. So, no, I don't have any questions. I think this is well thought out as far as the fencing, and the fencing seems to be needed and desired. And out of all the options, this is the best. It can be broken down, it can be tracked, it can be reused. So for all those reasons, I think it's a good choice. And the community garden is going well. The tier 1 is completely finished, ready for the garden beds. But garden beds were delivered to the DPW yard today, and there's other material there. So I think the month of May is basically the month where the community garden is going to be put together. Stage 1 is finished, and stage 2, the build out begins.
And you're welcome to come and help at any point you would like to.
Yeah, you want to announce those build days? You know those off the top of your head?
It is May 6th and 7th, May 13, 14, 15, and then other days as needed. At the Town Forest Day, we're going to have signups for different tasks that are going on, and we'll be happy to, of course, send custom lists to any of y'all who are interested.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we vote to approve this fencing?
Yes.
Can I interrupt real quick just to make sure I got those dates right in the minutes? It was May 6th, 7th, and what were the other dates?
13, 14, and 15.
13, 14, and 15. Thanks.
Yes.
Is there someone who can present a motion to approve this fencing plan?
I'll make a motion to approve a plan for the mesh fence with one strand, one fish line, although with acceptance of more than that if it deems necessary.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, moved by Brian Bowe, seconded by Andrew Dribbin. Andrew, start the voting.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. All right, thank you very much, Kathy and Ellen.
Thank you. And we appreciate the input that y'all have given, and I think we've really strengthened the plan.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, next on the agenda is 62 Whittier Road. Is that Jason?
And Thor.
Jason and Thor, okay. All right, and I will read the blurb. Continue the public hearing on a request for determination of applicability filed by Rachel and Jason Casey under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Mass General Law, Chapter 131 and Section 40, and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1, to install a 32-foot by 16-foot in-ground swimming pool and associated patio. Moving the shed and installing a 6-foot vinyl fence will be included in the work. Portions of the work are within the 100-foot buffer zone. The application and plans can be viewed on the Conservation Division page under the current project, Assessor's Map 33, Lot 130, RCC file number 2022-2. All right, thank you, Thor.
Thank you, Vice Chair Moore. Good evening, everyone. I'll share my screen here just a moment.
Yes, please.
So here is I did a little bit of a colored rendering this time, so you can see the layout of the property a little bit better. Again, we have an existing single-family home, which is backed up by currently a lawn area. And then, as we remember, a wooded section back here with a bordering vegetated wetland off the back of the property. The lawn area we highlighted in a lawn green color here, the patio in a concrete aggregate patio in this gray. Erosion controls shown in this yellowy beige color, and the proposed fence within the buffer zone in this darker red color. As the commission may recall, we had a lengthy discussion about fencing, and after consideration and trying to keep things out of that wooded area to allow wildlife to continue using that area. You know, it's one of the few areas along Whittier where there is actually vegetation off the back of the property in the buffer zone. The homeowners have decided to move the fence outside to along the 35-foot buffer, outside of the 35-foot no-build zone, and then wrap around here along the edge of lawn. We do have a piece of lawn that extends down to here. So this will at least preserve them, pretty much their existing lawn area. The existing shed is no longer proposed to be removed, just to keep things simple. So that is staying in its current location. Otherwise, I know some of the discussion revolved around a little bit of a lack of detail along the elevations here. Again, our intention was to not deceive anyone. The existing grade here is extremely flat, so we added 4 proposed elevations at the corners of the patio. What these show is that essentially the patio is mirroring the existing grade. Just so I can zoom in here, the bottom of the step off of the wood deck is at elevation 96.9, and you can see about 30 feet in this direction, we only drop about 0.4 feet. So 5 or so inches drop from here to here. So a very, very minimal drop. In here, 96.9, and then 96.5 off this portion of the patio or proposed patio. And then here's your 96 contour. So again, from here to here, which is about 15 to 20 feet, you have a 6-inch drop. So a very flat area. And what these proposed contours now show, or proposed spot shots show, is that the patio is gently proposed to slope towards the back of the property, mirroring what's currently existing there, which is a general slope, general gradient towards the back of the property and towards the bordering vegetated wetlands in the rear. And again, we have a very large lawn area here, which will buffer the wetlands from any increase in impervious here. Commissioner Driven, I know you asked about the patio. I know I gave you a total number for the patio square feet, but I did get a calculation for the amount of patio in the buffer zone, and that is 200 square feet. So 200 square feet here within the buffer zone. And these two arrows just, we call them flow arrows. We typically use them on plans just to show the general direction of water. And again, water proposed to move in its current state in this direction, and in the proposed condition mirroring that as well. The applicants did want to add some river rock here for decorative purposes. They do have, the neighbor at 56 Whittier does have their driveway close to the property line here, as well as a couple downspouts off their house, which is, I believe, also in this vicinity. So they just wanted to add a little bit of a buffer between the house and that driveway, just to prevent any water causing erosion or issues like that. That is outside the buffer zone, but we wanted to make sure it was on the plan. We did also add a proposed construction entrance off the driveway. I know we talked about that. So they would just stage materials out here, and again, with any machinery, come off of here, and then work within the proposed erosion control boundary here. So no machinery or any work would be done beyond this mulch sock, which is now also labeled the limit of work. And then finally, there was some discussion about the sump pump. The sump pump discharged in this vicinity here. We showed an approximate location based on the homeowner's assessment of its location on the property. It is outside the buffer zone, and it's proposed to remain outside the buffer zone in this planting bed. Believe that's everything. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the homeowners are here as well, should you have any further questions as well.
Okay. Any members of the commission have questions about this project at this point? Andrew Driven.
It's more of a comment than a question. Well, this new plan is much appreciated. And I like that the fence is moved. My one comment would be, can the fence just follow the 35-foot line rather than following the lawn of that little nub right there? I think for sake of I know it's lawns right now, but you could just tell from the aerial photo, and I haven't been out to the site, but the animals want to move throughout there as well. So in terms of keeping that flow just of the animals and the wildlife and all that fun stuff, I would prefer to see the fence out of the 35-foot zone. So that's my personal feeling. I'm not sure how the other commissioners feel. And then just, I know you gave me the 200 square foot of impervious. Thor, my question was, or my comment was more just overall throughout the whole site, how much impervious is there? Is it like 3,000? Again, don't worry about it. I just wanted to clarify that that was the actual number I was looking for. So again, no, my real point is keeping the fence at the 35-foot zone.
Joe Carnahan.
Thank you. I was just trying to find my pictures actually from the site visit because I was there. So I on the subject of the fence going along the existing lawn, it is worth noting that the neighboring lawn is lawn all the way to the edge of the property line. I think I'm actually trying to find it. I believe there's a shed uncomfortably close to the wetland there, yeah. Which might be a separate conversation to have with Chuck and possibly the neighbors. But in any case, if the fence were to follow the 35-foot line, it would still be sort of ending very abruptly at the neighboring yard, because the neighboring yard is yard all the way back to the edge of the property. So I don't personally see, I'm really excited about seeing the existing wooded area kept outside the fence so that it can be preserved as such. I don't see the same value in that bit of lawn that extends out just because it's contiguous with a bunch of other lawn that's already there and that isn't going anywhere right now, I think.
Andrew,
Yeah, I just want to comment on that because I see that, and it doesn't just because the neighbor has decided at some point in the past 50 years to take all the trees down and extend the lawn doesn't make it right. I understand that it might be awkward at first, but it'll look fine over the years as things grow back in place. And just because the neighbor has the yard all the way to the end of the forest line of their lot doesn't mean that these neighbors should keep that too. So I don't agree with that logic, but I understand where you're coming from.
anybody else on the commission with comments or questions? Seeing none, I have a question, which is, are you planning to put a gate in the fence behind the shed or along the 35-foot line or anything like that?
Jason, do you know the answer to that, or Rachel?
Yeah, we are not planning on putting a fence back or a gate back there.
Okay. All right.
I believe that was Chuck's recommendation to just kind of block it off and let nature do its thing.
Mhm. Yeah, there is definitely a downside to having a gate, which is if you have a gate, it's very tempting to carry lawn waste back there and make a pile of yard waste in the woods. It seems like a good idea because it's just going to compost, but it's not good for the wetland. And so, but on the other hand, if there are invasive species that are trying to come in, we certainly do not discourage people from trying to beat back the buckthorns or the oriental bittersweets if they're trying to kill your trees. So it's a mixed blessing. And I have kind of the same feelings of both Joe and Andrew, and they have conflicting thoughts about the extension of the yard and the fence back there, and I am conflicted on it. I'm wondering whether we can encourage some natural vegetation in that 25-foot zone of natural vegetation to kind of match what's in the tree area there. And, you know, not necessarily all at once, but it would be good to extend some natural vegetation in that extension of lawn and not have it be lawn all the way to the stone wall. So, you know, maybe not 35-foot line, maybe 25-foot line, maybe 10 feet in, something to reclaim a little bit of that riverbank for nature would be my thought. Any feedback from other members of the commission? Andrew, you're muted.
Yeah, my hand was just up from before I forgot to take it down. But since you asked, within the 25-foot zone, I think if we put some natural vegetation plantings in there, and then you're suggesting also just keeping the fence as drawn, but doing some plantings in that little zone.
Either that or pull the fence into the 25-foot line or compromise and put it somewhere in the middle. You know, we often allow people to keep pretty much what they already have, but we often also ask people if they would put in a 5-foot zone of natural vegetation where there was lawn, for example. So I've seen it done many different ways.
Since I was the vocal one on moving the fence, I could get behind keeping the fences drawn, but within the 25-foot zone, doing some natural plantings. And I could get behind that. But I think 25 feet seems reasonable. Just that patch could be some natural vegetation and not lawn anymore.
Chuck, you have your hand up.
Oh, you're muted.
I did want to add that I was looking at the application and I've didn't see a request for a variance for the fence, which is considered a structure with our regulations within that 35-foot area. So that's another thing that would have to be considered. I don't think that's a delay in any way, but that variance request needs to happen. Which typically planting in that area would be one of the components of the variance request.
Okay.
Could I just chime in really quick?
Yes, please, Thor.
Respectfully, Chuck, I don't believe actually a fence is part of the no build zone setback. The fencing is actually within the minor project descriptor section where it's considered a minor project unless it presents a barrier to wildlife. The 35 is reserved for, in my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, for actual structures, foundations, things that would actually interfere with the root structures of trees. I can pull up the bylaw in a second.
Yeah, I know this has come up a lot, and the commission is stand firm that we don't have a definition, so any structure is considered a structure. So the fence would be, I mean, this is something that we need to fix in the future, but we've been consistent with that. And I see your point, because there's been other spots where we've had fences right up to the wetland line, and I can't remember whether we've asked them for variance or not, but I would assume that we did. And is a fence something that I've approved as a minor project permit? I don't think we've had many fences come in by themselves, so I'd have to look into that. Just off the top of my head, that's where we're at. But again, without going through the regulations and kind of like sorting this out here, I think what we're looking at is a variance request. And if you went to that section, you could see the three components. Is there somewhere else to move the structure? Can you mitigate the structure? And that would be the benefit, would be the planting. So I'm just putting it out there. The commission can take over from that point and have a discussion.
I'm wondering whether the homeowner has any thoughts on this, whether they would be willing to move the fence away from the wetland line and or put in some natural plantings. Either or both of those requests. So Jason, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think we were just proceeding based off of the last discussion that we had 2 weeks ago. Can you hear me, Kirsty?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I think we were proceeding on just the discussion we had 2 weeks ago that existing lawn was okay to be fenced in. You know, that I kind of asked that as a clarifying question towards the end of our time. So that's how we were proceeding with that. But we're obviously open to your suggestions, because at the end of the day, the goal is for the pool, right? Yeah. So we recognize that, and we obviously want to do this right. And, you know, so we're willing to, you know, bring the fence up some, you know, to some agreed upon point with the committee, and, you know, to work with you guys towards that same goal.
All right. Hey, let me try to summarize for a second. So we have a fence that's on existing lawn with a lawn next to it is in that same area, very open. Mm-hmm. There's a kind of thought that, my thought is that a variance request is what's needed for it. And then there was some planting. So one of the possibilities, kind of combining all that information, would be to leave the fence where it is, plant in the area that's been carved out for natural, where the fence goes up and around the natural area, and see if there's a possibility for planting in that area. I mean, I don't know what that small little alcove of lawn, how that helps out, but it's you know, it's not my yard, and maybe it's worth not having it blocked off with planting. Just a
Yeah.
suggestion.
No, I appreciate the suggestion. And I mean, I think ideally we were just looking to make sure we captured it as lawn for the kids, you know, but we can definitely work with your suggestion.
All right, Martha, just bring us all together here. Just
Okay.
go for it.
Right. I'm going to suggest, it sounds like, you know, you want as much room for your kids to play in as possible, but it's possible to have some plantings like blueberry bushes or a dogwood tree or something like that in that area that would not greatly reduce the value for your kids, and they might actually be able to pick some of the blueberries. So maybe we could go for a compromise of leave the fence as drawn, but request that you put in a few shrubs or small trees or some ferns or some other plantings like that along the inside of that area to kind of soften the line as you go from the natural area along the river there. That's my suggestion, but Joe has his hand up. Joe.
Thanks, Martha. So I did want to. I'm torn because more buffer is always better. That's if I didn't think that, I probably wouldn't be on the Conservation Commission. My recollection of 2 weeks ago does match Mr. Casey's, that we talked about that what we, the commission, asked for was for the fence to follow the lawn.
Mm-hmm.
So I am I don't want to be responsible for moving goalposts. That doesn't seem very neighborly. But on the other hand, I would love to see you know, even a little bit of buffer would be great. You know, so I'm actually not. I will defer to others with perhaps more of the relevant expertise about whether it's more beneficial to the wetland to have planting inside the fence, or to, you know, have a bunch of planting inside the fence, or to move the fence a small amount, or what here. But I did want to just sort of state for the record my recollection of what we talked about last time.
Okay, Andrew, you're muted.
I'll be brief. I know from my recollection, so it's just me. I do recall others saying that the fence should follow the lawn, but I did not say that last time. I said it should follow the 35-foot line, if not even go further into the yard. I was clear on that, in my memory at least. Like, I was wanting to see the fence go along the proposed mulch line. That would be my preferred spot for it. And that's what I said at the last meeting even. But that being said, if I'm the only one that really feels strongly about it following the 35-foot line, I'm not sure what my opinion really matters, because you guys can move on without me. So I'm not sure how the other commissioners feel about that, but that's would be, if I could, I would put a motion that just let's follow the 35-foot line fence. But I don't know if I'll get support for that. And I don't know how that slows things down.
All right, I just have one question. Again, I was having trouble remembering what you're planning to make the fence out of along that back part of the property. Is it going to be white vinyl, solid panels, or is it going to be chain link or vertical posts or something else?
I believe the plan was for vinyl fencing, white vinyl fencing.
All right. Because that does make a difference. I was kind of picturing something more see-through if I'm talking about putting natural vegetation on the inside of it. If you've got a solid vinyl fencing, that pretty much cuts off my vegetation from the rest of the vegetation.
Yep.
All right, so Andrew is proposing a motion that we approve the plan in all the suggestions that are currently there, except for moving the corner of the fence closer to the house, up to the 35-foot line. Is there a second for that motion? I don't see one. All right, is there somebody else who has a motion you would like to present?
Sorry, I was trying to find both the agenda so I could look, is this an RDA? Can refresh my memory what we're talking about here. Also, I was trying to find the unmute button. So you're asking for a, we would be at this point, because it's just an RDA, the next step would be a motion to issue a negative determination with some, although I'm actually not sure. Can we issue a negative determination for a plan which is not the one that is in front of us? Because that's not what the, I don't think that's what's been offered. So I don't know, like we could say, I don't know if we could say yes to what's not been offered. We presumably would need the, Mr. Ackerley or Mr. Casey to say something about changing with what the proposal is, right?
Yeah, if it's a simple change, like it seems like we're pretty close here. If there's a simple change that we can all agree upon, we're happy to submit a revised plan showing that to Chuck. The commission could vote for a negative determination based on the Chuck receiving the plan with the requested revisions, to avoid having to drag this to another meeting if the commission's comfortable with it.
Andrew.
Yeah, can I just make the motion clear then? Make a motion for a negative determination of applicability for 62 Whittier with the condition of the fence being moved along the 35-foot line.
Do we have a second? Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking parliamentary procedure here. I think maybe what I want to do is second it and then offer a friendly amendment to a different distance that isn't quite so far as 35 feet, like 25 feet. 25 feet is, of course, that's what we want. That's generally what we want as a no disturb zone. That's generally what we want as an area where we want natural vegetation to grow. So I wouldn't want to ask, 25 feet seems like the right number to ask for. So I guess I will second. And then I'd like to offer Andy a friendly amendment to change 25 feet to 35 feet. Or sorry, 35 feet to 25 feet.
Andrew, do you accept that amendment?
I do.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the plan as described, but with the fence line brought up to the 25-foot line to allow for a zone of natural vegetation behind, proposed by Andrew Dribbin, seconded by Joe Carnahan. Does that sound reasonable if we vote on that, Mr. Ackerley or Mr. Casey?
Yes, I believe that's reasonable.
Okay, Andrew, start the voting.
All right, Andrew Dribbin in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you all.
so Thor, you'll send us the new plan and yeah, and we'll
Okay.
talk over the minor project permits. So
Yeah, we'll have to have a chat about that.
I was just looking at them too. I felt some, anyways, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Sure, that'll be out next week. If there's usually a question, so let me just go this far and just say if you're waiting to submit the pool permit, there's no reason to do that anymore. So it'd probably take 10 days anyways to approve.
Yep, we'll get you the revised plan tomorrow, Chuck.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jason. Good luck with your pool.
Thank you all. Have a great time.
Okay, we have 22 Collins Ave has been continued to May 11th at the applicant's request. I don't think we need to vote on that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and likewise, 1310 Main Street has been continued to May 11th at the applicant's request.
But that just came in, so we would vote on that one.
Okay, so can I have a motion to continue 1310 Main Street to May 11th?
I move to continue 1310 Main Street to May 11th.
I'll second it.
Okay,
Andrew- oh, sorry, Andrew Drippin in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, moving right along, 15 Carriage Lane. This is the first time this one has come before the commission. And I will read the blurb while Chuck lets people in. 15 Carriage Lane, open the public hearing on a request for determination of applicability filed by nope, wrong one, excuse me. How did I, oh. I think we just have the wrong names there because we already had Jason Casey.
Okay.
So, well, anyway, determinant of applicability under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1, to install a 24-foot above-ground pool on the existing lawn with minimal grading and leveling. Patio blocks will be moved into the area by wheelbarrow, replace the railings and decking on the back deck, renovate the porch with windows, door, and move the staircase. All of the work is within the 100-foot buffer zone. The application and plans can be viewed on the Conservation Division page under the current project Assessors Map 48, Lot 53, RCC file number 2022-3. Okay, do we have we have Jack Sullivan here. Do we have the homeowners?
Yep, the homeowner's here as well. Kate DePalma, I see her online.
Okay. All right, so we need to correct the names in the blurb to say Kate DePalma. Okay. All right, 15 Carriage Lane. All right, I know Brian Bowe and I went out to look at the property. Did anybody else make a site visit? No, okay. Brian, do you want to make a summary of what we found when we went there?
Sure. Okay, so what we started with, of course, is looking at the wetland flags. We started from 8A and worked our way back. Everything seemed copacetic until we got to around 6A. 6A, inside of that, and actually inside the stone wall, there was an area that was lower and wet. And so we were wondering about the placement of that flag. And we felt that that was pretty critical because that's a tight measurement between where 6A is and the corner of the stairs. And so that seems to be the most critical placement of the flags in there. Other than that, we looked at pool to the property boundary. We looked at the proposed erosion lines and what have you, and all that seemed okay. So the question I think that I would point out is 6A. Martha, anything else that you wanted to bring up that I didn't cover on them?
Well, just it's not shown on the plans because they're not considered permanent structures, but along inside the fence, as you start at the shed and work your way along sort of edge of easement, there was a wooden play structure, and then there was a trampoline, and then there was a composting bin all in that area outside the proposed mulch socks. So there's a lot of the 25-foot zone that has temporary structures in it. The trampoline can clearly be picked up and moved around. The play structure looks a little more permanent. And obviously the shed is inside the 25-foot zone. So this lawn is right out to the fence, and the fence is just inside the stone wall that the flags are going right along the edge of the stone wall. If you look where it says existing drainage easement, that's actually standing water out there. There's a what looks to be a pond at this time of year that comes almost up to the 6A, 7A wetland line there. But when I was standing inside the fence, looking at the 6A flag, my feet were going squish, squish in soft, spongy soil. So I think that flag is definitely in the wrong place. So one question is, could the red staircase be moved further away from the wetland line? And that might give you your 35 feet and still be able to put the stairs in. If you just move it, say 4 feet away from the wetland coming off the deck there.
Kate, do you know, we had an architect design the steps and platform. To me, it looks like it would be able to move, but I'd have to check that with the architect. Is that what you thought? Flag 6A may move 3 to 4 feet?
Yeah. That would be my guess is, 5 feet at the most, but 4 feet might be also a reasonable answer.
I'd go on the higher side of that range, so I'd say 4 to 5 feet, definitely more than 3.
Okay.
But not 10. So I think moving the stairs is a reasonable approach, assuming the architect agrees with that.
I can check with the architect on that unless you have some information, Kate, that you want to add.
I don't see any reason why it couldn't move 4 to 5 feet. I would say where that, if I'm guessing the area where the 6A is, that's just the natural low point of the yard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily believe it's creeping in from the wetland area. I think it's just how our yard drains. It just seems to, that's the low point, which is one reason why there are leaves and stuff there, just.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but being the low point kind of makes it a wetland. Wetlands are defined by hydric soil, and I was definitely standing in hydric soil. If you look at the vegetation in that area, instead of lawn, you have moss. That's another clue that the soil is too wet to support your grass. And the moss grows better in those wet places. So that sort of mossy patch along the fence is an indication that the chain link fence is not actually the wetland line. I'm not the expert. We could ask you to have a second person come out, but that's a big expense to hire another wetland scientist to come out, when if you could just move your stairs and err on the side of caution, we could probably approve the project without approving flag 6A as a wetland flag. I had some other questions. We saw another place where an above ground pool had been installed previously, and they put a asphalt pavement all the way around the base of the pool. And that's clearly something that you're not going to be doing, but are you going to be putting some sort of patio, gravel, something around the outside of the pool so that the grass isn't going right up to the edge? Or are you going to have lawn right up to the framework of the pool?
No, we have a note on the plan. Around the perimeter of the pool, there'll be crushed stone placed. So
Okay,
off to the left of the proposed pool, there's a leader. It says pool area to have grass and loam removed, sand to be placed,
mhm.
and patio block, crushed stone to be placed along pool perimeter. So we show the pool, we show the pool bracing, just because the bracing is part of the structure, and we wanted to show that we had over 35 feet to the wetland, and then they'll have crushed stone around the perimeter of the pool.
So how wide a swath of crushed stone are we talking?
I would think 2 feet.
Okay. Okay. Um,
Because the bracing extends out 9 inches.
mhm.
So the crushed stone would probably, go a foot either side of the bracing.
Okay, there are other projects where people have come in to have a project and we've asked them to move the shed out of the 25-foot zone and into the part of the yard that doesn't have, that's beyond 35 feet even. And I'm having trouble imagining that there is any place that you could move that shed that would be 35 feet away from the wetland and still within the property. So I don't know exactly what to suggest about the shed. The only place I could imagine moving it would be under the deck. That could get it beyond the 35-foot line. Given that you're putting a pool in the only available space back there. Do any other members of the commission have thoughts about the shed or the swing set or the trampoline, compost? Do those impact the project? And, likewise, we have lawn right up to the fence, well within the 25-foot zone of natural vegetation. That is existing lawn at this point, but any thoughts on any of those questions? Andrew.
I did not make it out to the site, so I apologize. But yeah, I share your concerns. I'm looking at the historical aerial photos, and you could tell the yard has been expanded in the past 10 years dramatically. Trees been taken down and the grass being planted. And the shed has only been built in the past couple of years. I don't know how long the homeowner has lived here, but so I'm not sure if they're the ones responsible. But yeah, I would think that to move forward with this particular project as planned, the shed would have to be moved. As far as the trampoline and the other compost, well, in general, I think we'd want the 25-foot buffer zone restored to what it was 10 years ago. So if that's all within the 25-foot buffer zone, then yeah, that would have to get moved. And
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions? Chuck, do you have any advice for us on this one?
Well, I do have to say that Andrew raised a good point. I don't know what it looked like before, but to restore some of that buffer, I mean, this is a area, I think these people haven't lived there that long, but I think that others in this area have pushed back the wetland as much as they, or their lawn up to the wetland as much as they can, and that stone barrier and fence seem to be a good spot. But if it's moss down there, right up against the fence, most likely if you stop mowing it, and I assume in the spring it's very difficult to mow, you would get some wetland plants growing back in that area. We can't, and I hope I told the applicant this, that we can't just look at the pool. We have to look at everything that's out there, and you know, it's other things that are going on too. So I think they were aware that the shed might be something that the commission had questions about. I don't know. It's definitely not up to the commission to figure out where all these things go. For example, the crushed stone, I consider that being some sort of alteration, and it should be shown on the plan. I think if you look at our descriptions and what we'd asked for in surveys, play structures are definitely something that we'd like to see. Would have liked to see that on the plan, would have liked to see the total extent. I certainly said it enough that I wanted to see the total extent of all the disturbed area that has to do with the pool. And I understand that the wing wall was part of it, but also the crushed stone's the other part. And by leaving it off the plan, it really looks like it's within the 35-foot zone. But by putting it on the plan, we could see the extent of that impact, but also understand that homeowners are allowed to kind of encroach into that area by about 3 feet. So I think they would be covered. And again, we'd find ourselves in this request for a variance, and part of the variance ends up becoming planting. So we would be right in an area where we wanted to be with this project, going through and using the regulations and our own wetlands protection bylaw to kind of answer the questions that everyone's brought up. You know, what about some planning, and what about moving things out of here, and other things. So that's what I feel. I feel like the answers are there and they're supported, and a little buffer strip and some additional planning, and to move the shed. All those things are up to the commission, but I think they're supported by our regulations.
Just have a question for Kate. Can you tell us, did you guys put the shed in, or was that there when you bought the house?
So I would ask for a little leniency with the shed, because we did put the shed in. We pulled a permit for the shed. By mistake, where the shed was placed was on my neighbor's property, because there was a misunderstanding of how that line opposite the wetland side, how that property line was running. So it was approved, but the shed was approved on my neighbor's property. And when the site was marked and everything, so when my neighbor found out the property line was different, because he also thought that from the beginning, we were all on the same page. And when he found out his property line was different, he then said, please move your shed. So we did not go back and get another permit to move it. We just tried to keep it as far away from the wetland as possible.
So is that why in the aerial imagery, there seems to be a shed in further over, and that may be a picture of your old shed before it got moved?
Most likely, if it was to the left of the chain link fence on the left-hand side of the house.
Yeah, that there looks like there's something back there. That's right. Okay, so that explains that. You got a permit for the shed, but not a permit for the particular location it's in now.
Right.
Yeah, it looks like in 2014, there was a permit for the shed. Is that correct? And it was approved with a minor project permit, so it had to be 35 feet away based on the plan. So it was a minor project permit, and that's one of the requirements, at least 35 feet away to qualify for that. There is no plan in our server, because it's when we changed over to the new system, they only brought text over, and they don't bring the plans over, so I can't look at those.
Okay. All right, and how long have you lived in this house? Since before 2014?
Yeah, so 2011.
Okay, because I'm also looking at the aerial photos from, say, 2015. It looks like there's more trees in the middle of the backyard, pretty much where the pool wants to be. So did you have any trees taken down?
Not there. I wouldn't say where that close to the middle.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the photos. Some are easier to make out what it is than others, but it looks like something. Some vegetation in the middle of the yard, not just lawn. You know, like 2011, I don't know. 2011, there's long shadows from the trees along the fence. But okay, anyway, that may not be relevant to the question. Okay, so I guess, you know, maybe we should ask you to come back with a plan of what you're going to do with the shed before we can approve the pool. And also you can check with the architect whether you can move the steps, and also maybe a planting plan to see if we can help protect that zone of natural vegetation along the fence better. Does that sound like a reasonable way to move forward with this?
When you mentioned the natural vegetation, just where that flag, the 6A flag area?
Well,
Is that what you're referring to?
You thinking like a 5-foot or 10-foot strip, Martha? Or yeah, if you're talking the entire 25-foot zone, we'd have to talk a little bit about that. Kate and I would, if it's some plantings, 5 or 10 feet off the wetland line. Otherwise, she's left with no yard.
right. I wasn't thinking of the entire 25-foot zone. I think that's a lot to ask. But, I was thinking, maybe a 5-foot strip along on the inside of the fence, try to preserve that a little bit. I think maybe around behind the shed, it looked like the vegetation is pretty, it looks like the dog spends a lot of time there and the vegetation is not growing well because there's a lot of dog tracks back there, perhaps. Am I right?
Yes, she likes to circle the shed.
Yeah. So, that's the kind of thing I'm looking for, is to see if we can get some plantings that will protect the soil to keep it from washing into the wetland and eroding. Certainly in the place that's wet along the chain link fence for sure, but it would be nice to have more plantings along the fence. It looks like there's somewhere up closer to the house, you've already put in a small tree near the fence. So that kind of thing is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And I just had 2 questions for the commission. One was it goes back to what Chuck said. We did put a note that there'd be stone around the pool, crushed stone. I can graphically show that on the plan, but if that goes inside the 35 feet, the 35-foot setback, are we considering crushed stone a structure and I need a variance from that? And secondly, what about the play structure? Did everyone hear me?
We heard you. People
Okay.
are thinking. Anybody want to answer either of those questions?
Yeah, so Jack, I would think that the pool is looked at as one complete, one complete appliance where you would have the water, the walls, the wing walls, and the base. The base, in this case, is crushed stone, but it encroaches into the 35-foot line. It's not just crushed stone on its own. It's part of the pool. So with that reasoning, I think that, again, we're looking for an encroachment of the pool structure within the 35-foot no structure zone. And that's where I've asked for the variance.
Okay, I
don't
don't
think
think, I don't think the crushed stone is part of the pool structure. But I can check with Kate on that. I thought that was more the pool bracing was, and we just figured we'd put stone around the
Yeah.
pool.
Oh, I thought it was the base to, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, now I think about it, why wouldn't you use sand? It seems like it would be, yeah, so that would be a good question to find out.
Okay.
And then maybe you don't need that crushed stone.
Okay.
We are more than happy to have grass up to the pool. I actually thought crushed stone was better for drainage and everything. That was the only reason.
Yeah, it wasn't part of the structure for the pool build. It was more exactly, she thought she just put the stone around for drainage and we wouldn't have grass. You know, how are you gonna mow grass right to the pool anyway? So you'd have that crushed stone strip between that and the grass in the pool.
So, and just, I can actually, I found the plan, the shed was approved 90 feet away from the site. So if you guys want to see the plan, I mean,
Yeah,
doesn't
why
need
don't
to
you
be done.
bring it up for us?
All right, let me just keep talking. I'll figure out how to do that.
While you're doing that, I'm going to answer the question about the play structure. I remember there was another yard with a play structure, and the homeowner agreed that when the children outgrew the play structure, they would remove the play structure and return that area to natural vegetation. And maybe that would be a compromise that we could approach this with, is, you know, as long as your kids are playing on it, go ahead and leave it there. But when they are outgrown the play structure, maybe it would be a good time to put some plantings in where the play structure is. So that's my suggestion. Okay. 90 feet from the stone wall.
Yeah, so it clearly shows the stone wall right here. And I've written, just as a note, in case the commission wanted to see what I was doing, that the shed is, you know, and I did a site visit, it looks like. And this is the area where they showed me. So here's the more of the triangle area, and we're down here with a pool now. So this was a minor project permit approved for a shed up in that area.
Okay, so very close to the back corner of the house. It doesn't look to me like there's a screen porch and a deck on the back of the house right now. So it looks like the shed was approved to be pretty close to where the corner of the screen porch is.
I will say on this plot plan, it does look like that. But in reality, the site that was leveled and prepared for the shed is to the right of the property line.
Right.
Because when we bought the house, we were told the property line is the stone wall, which if you keep looking to the right, you can see it on the far side. And like I said, we were told that. My neighbor was under that assumption also. And that was the area that was prepped and seen and approved, and the shed was built there.
So are you saying the shed was built more like where the E on fence is now? Like right?
Where that word fence is yes, where it was.
Okay. And that is more believable to me that that is 90 feet away from the stone wall. Because when we were measuring things, you know, it's only 35 feet to the deck from the stone wall. So, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so no, the fence is not only in the wrong spot, it's not approved for that spot. So.
All right, so do we have any more questions you want to ask and you guys can go back and talk about how to solve this problem and come back to us, maybe continue to May 11th.
I don't have any more questions. I think we understand the concerns raised by the commission, and Kate and I will talk, and we'll come back to you guys with an updated plan. I'll try to show more material. We'll talk to the architect about the steps, and then we'll have some discussions on the shed, plantings, and other things that got brought up tonight.
Okay, anybody from the audience who's not on the commission have any questions to ask? Okay. One last chance for commission members or Chuck or the applicant. Joe.
Raise my hand just to say that I'm given the saga of the shed, as we now understand it, thanks to everyone here, by the way, who contributed pieces to that story. Yeah, while I'm usually, big on leaving things in place if they're already there, given that it was moved relative to where it was approved before, that does look like maybe the best solution would probably be to remove the shed, just because there isn't a place for a shed on the yard once you actually know what the property line is, unfortunately. So those are my thoughts. But then I will also add that I liked Martha's comment about leaving play structures for now and removing them sort of opportunistically later when they are no longer in demand. Those are my comments.
Okay, all right. Can I have a motion to continue this hearing to, and is May 11th enough time, or do you guys want to put it off till the second meeting in May?
May 11th enough time.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. Anybody want to make a motion?
Finding the name. I'll move that we continue our hearing on 15 Carriage Lane to our meeting on May 11th.
Seconded.
All right,
Andrew Driven in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. All right, thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing what you come back with.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I have to find my agenda again. Here we go. Our next hearing is Zero Small Lane. Is there anybody here for Zero Small Lane today?
Sharks are muted.
Zero Small Lane has contacted me and said that they would like to continue until May 11th. I'm not, parts are coming into this very slowly, but we do have the wetland consultant. I was talking to Norris Environmental, and they need to finish up a letter and then provide some information back to Ann Martin from LEC. And it still might be a question whether it's May 11th or the following one, but we did receive the check for the bylaw fees. At that.
Okay.
Some information you'd like to know.
All right, so we might as well continue to May 11th, and if they're ready, we can see them then, and if not, we'll continue again.
So
Yep.
I'll make a motion to continue Zero Small Lane to May 11th.
Second that.
And voting?
Andrew Driven in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, 572 Summer Ave has already been continued to May 11th. So that brings us to 47 Indian Tree Lane. And the Noonans are here. All
Hey,
right.
how are you?
Hello, welcome.
Nice
And
to see
it's
you
only
again.
8:42, not
I
bad.
know, we're flying through it.
Okay, I don't have a blurb to read. It just says permit discussion, comma Noonan. All right, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, my submission didn't look nearly as official as some of the ones ahead of mine. So I have my PowerPoint to share. Most of the commission represented here, including Chuck, were on the property on Monday, but I'm happy to share the PowerPoint that I have.
That would be fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Should take us through it. Yep.
So let me just.
So is this a minor permit project discussion? Is that what we're looking at?
So yeah, and Chuck could probably fill in the details where I'm short on understanding the exact nomenclature, but I had anticipated submitting minor project permits for the work we were going to do. Chuck then informed me that, we should really have the patio portion of the project assessed separately. And that's when I went through the process of inviting people to the property on Monday and putting together this little slideshow to explain what it is we're trying to do, to hopefully get all three elements of the project approved under minor project permits.
Thank you.
Chuck, is that said correctly?
Yeah, I think I'll just step back and say, or just say that there is no permit in front of us, but this is an effort by the applicant to request that this be considered as a minor project permit.
Yes. I think that's correctly stated. So for those members of the commission that weren't at our property earlier this week, we moved in fall of 2019, and we inherited a number of landscape improvements done by the previous owner, including a decked-in above-ground pool, and asphalt hardscaping, and a railroad-tied tiered garden, all of which extend kind of fairly predominantly around the backyard. We knew when we purchased the home that a number of these improvements were leading towards the end of their natural life, and unfortunately, in the summer of last year, the pool failed structurally. So we had the pool removed and left us with this beautiful sand pit, as you can see here on the right. That's what we're calling the current disturbed area. And then this is towards the driveway. If you look at aerial pictures of the home, this is towards the front of the home. This is the railroad tie tiered garden and hardscaping pavement that we inherited. So, to net out the three projects we're trying to do, we'd like to remove all of the carcinogenic railroad ties from the property, because we can't plant any vegetables or anything we can grow because of the fact that they leach chemicals into the ground. Remove all asphalt from the property. We have an aging deck, which these pictures are all taken from, but they don't actually show up very well. There it is. Yeah, on the right there, there's the deck. We have an aging deck we'd like to replace with a built to code deck. And in that disturbed area you saw previously, we'd like to put in a stone patio. So all three projects are somewhat contingent upon one another. And all three have been brought to a head by the fact that pool failed fairly spectacularly. So I think, the understanding from my discussion on Monday and previous discussions with Chuck was, improving the walkway and tiered garden would fall under a minor project permit. Replacing the deck could fall under a minor project permit, but the patio, which is essential to kind of all three projects, may require further review by the commission. So that's what we're here to ask for, permission to do it under a minor project permit and to meet whatever, conditions or requests the commission has in order to do so.
Okay. So Andrew and I and Brian were out there with Chuck on Monday afternoon. And so for the sake of Joe and John, who I don't think made it to that site visit, does anybody want to describe the general conditions, the area, where the fence line is and things like that? If nobody wants to, I'm going to do so.
I can do it, Martha, if you like.
Okay.
Okay, so the first thing we did was along the right-hand side of the property, there's a path that we followed to get a sense of the wetlands back there and how close they come to the fence. And the wetlands in general are very clear because there's a tremendous crop of skunk cabbage growing. So the fence down to the right of the property, the wetlands are in essence just a few feet beyond the fence. It's very close. As you go around, it's somewhat further away. To the top right corner of the proposed patio, right in that area, there's a gate through the fence. We went through the gate to kind of see what's out there. And there's, you know, a little bit of yard refuse, not anywhere near what we've seen in other problem areas. There is some signs that the sand eroding that way. There's a sandy trail heading off in that direction. So while we were there, the contractor was actually working at breaking up and taking out the asphalt walk. And he was loading into wheelbarrow and wheeling that back to his truck and putting it into the truck, which is good. It wasn't hanging around. Let me see, what else is there of note? So the proposed patio, the question there is, you know, it is close to the wetlands. It's within a buffer where we would normally have an issue with something being built. One of the things we did talk about with the homeowner was the possibility of having that become pervious rather than impervious. Chris, I believe you were open to that conversation.
Yep.
So I think I'll stop with the tour guide at the moment. And Martha or anybody else want to add anything?
I'll just mention that the shed that's drawn right on the dotted line of the easement no longer exists. So we don't have to have that conversation.
That was removed. Yeah, that was removed when we put in the fence.
And there is a play structure about where the word walkway is that you can see in some of the pictures. So there is a play structure inside the yard. And we did have a discussion with Chris about whether when they are completing this project, they might put some vegetation buffer along on the inside of the fence.
Yeah, for what it's worth, what's not drawn here and what we're very happy to accommodate, there is a 5-foot mulch bed proposed between the proposed patio and the fence line. And Chairperson Moore requested that we put native plantings in there where possible. Happy to do so. And to Brian's point, the original plan for the patio was an 11-inch combined crushed stone and stone dust base. And the request at the time was to change that base to a sand base in order to make it pervious. Our mason is more than happy to do that, says it makes great sense and happy to accommodate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's 10 inches of crushed stone and then instead of the stone dust, the sand on top.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For a total of 11 inches. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're not getting rid of the crushed stone, just the stone dust.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we didn't actually pull out the measuring tape and measure where 35 feet or 25 feet would be, but it's pretty obvious that the wetland line is pretty close to that dotted line with the drain easement and because of the skunk cabbage, large, vast quantities of skunk cabbage just on the outside of the fence.
Almost like we're growing it.
Yep.
You are actually.
Yeah, technically, I guess we are. Yeah.
Okay, and just one other comment, the driveway at the lower part of the picture that's shown gray says 72.08 actually extends a little wider than it looks like in the picture, because the driveway extends out past the corner of the house a ways. And then the pavement that they're removing extends from that driveway around the side of the house.
Yeah, there's a fairly extensive paved area in that improved walkway and tiered garden that we're removing.
Yeah, so go back a picture so we can see the picture of the tiered garden. Yeah, so you've already pulled out the shrub that's near the railing in the lower left corner of the picture, right?
Yep, that's come out.
Yeah, and you're working on pulling out the railroad ties at the moment, and you're going to replace them with masonry tiers instead of railroad tie tiers, correct?
Yeah, it'll be masonry tiers, and actually the lowest tier, as you can see it, will actually be brought in. I don't know exactly the dimensions, but the two tiers will probably be about 10 feet closer to that current paved area than they currently are.
So therefore further from the wetland.
Exactly. Yeah, we're going to recapture some grass area between that play structure and that lower tiered garden.
Okay. And you mentioned that you're the ones who put the fence in?
We are.
Okay.
There was
So
an existing fence when we bought the home, but it was in disrepair.
okay, so you replaced an existing fence.
Yes.
Got it. And you replaced it in the same location.
Other than that shed, which we had removed, yeah, it followed the same line.
Okay. All right. Anybody on the commission have questions and comments for the homeowners? Chuck, do you?
Just remember, this is not a permit. So you're giving guidance on whether this should be a minor project permit or a request for determination of applicability. So.
All right, Andrew, questions?
Yeah, so I was at the site as well. I just want to add that we're really close to Joshua Eaton, and it seems like that's, I guess it's a drainage easement, but it looks like a perennial stream behind their house. And it's a large yard and you got a lot going on. I don't really have any questions about the walkway, the tiered garden, or the replacement deck. I think those are all far enough away from the wetlands that they really seem like minor projects. And it's just that large area where the pool used to be. Since it really does get close to the potential wetland zone that we would be most concerned about from the conservation point of view. And I guess my question, since I'm just looking at a PowerPoint, but is this what's like, what's the actual patio that you're planning on building? I mean, are you really just working off a PowerPoint with your contractor, or is there something a little more defined drawn?
No, it really is. We've purely sketched it out together, like in real time in the space. We don't have more than that.
Okay.
As you saw, I think when you're there, it's a fairly like obvious place that we're replacing it. So it wasn't like he had to figure out where to put it. It was, you know, that existing sand pit really, and building atop it, the patio.
Right, but you don't have to build over the entire sanded area. I would think you could, as long as you're doing all this work, you could make the patio smaller or a different shape. So it's not, so I know we were talking about materials, making it permeable, which I am also in favor of, but just in terms of the shape that it takes, can we pull it away from the fence and then bring in some more, so make it vegetation, like have a 5 to 10 foot buffer zone between the fence and the proposed patio.
Yeah, so we're definitely happy, and it's kind of widening as you go left in this picture, but it's, a minimum of 5 foot really buffer zone that we're already planning on putting in with the local natural vegetation per Chairperson Moore's recommendation.
You've promoted me. I'm actually vice chair.
Sorry,
Oh, I'm
I'm
conducting
new to these
meeting.
meetings. I don't know the rules and regs.
Yeah, so, but I like Andrew's suggestion of maybe we could round off the corner of your proposed patio so that it gives you just a little bit more
Yeah,
distance.
and
away
maybe
from
it's
the
part
fence.
of my PowerPoint skills deficit, but I'm going to use the term back, meaning referring towards the drainage easement. The back left and right corners of the patio are rounded off. And you can imagine the left side of the patio as you look down is curved as well. So it is kind of more of it's not exactly a square the way it's drawn here. It is more of an arced design.
So Chuck, can you give us some guidance on whether this can be a just permit and we don't have to have him come back with an RDA, or what are the regs that we need to be considering?
So I guess minor project permit talks about being 35 feet away. I was just reviewing it for my anticipated conversation with Thor. So it will not constitute a barrier to wildlife movement, and it has a negligible impact and is located 35 feet away from the resource area. Those are some of the highlights that it didn't give the whole thing much of a look, but those are the ones that I was thinking about when we were talking about that other site on Whittier. That would be a minor project permit. I think for this one, based on my knowledge of the regulation and past projects that adhered to the regulations, the first two projects heading down towards the drainage area, I thought they would have been minor project permits. They're basically being replaced in kind, and not expanding the original footprint. It seemed like there wasn't much impact that I could expect from that. It was the pool area that I was concerned about, and mostly because the pool area, this pool was allowed, and you can see how it, maybe at the beginning it was just the pool, but then it turned into this deck area also, and it just really took over. I mean, the whole commission went out there a few times, and this thing was really, really huge. So I was surprised when it came down. I thought it was just going to be there for a very long time. But they all come down. All temporary pools, above ground pools, are considered temporary. And when the pool, fails, then that's the opportunity for the Conservation Commission to work with the applicant again to improve the area. I mean, I really believe that this was approved thinking that it was a long-term temporary impact, and the patio is going to be just extending that impact, and just the possibility of getting a little bit more back, like the buffer strip like we talked about, controlling the erosion, looking in the back and taking care of some of the leaf piles, maybe some more vegetated planting. All that seems great. At the end of the day, we're talking about time, and we're talking about impacting a project that there's no contractors available. I think for me, the answer was clear that it has to be a request for determination of applicability. And so I offered this spot on tonight's agenda to talk to the Conservation Commission. So unfortunately, it's going to have to be a decision made by the Conservation Commission, with all those factors taken into account, whether they can work under a minor project permit with conditions and feel like they have an agreement to move forward and kind of keep this project on track, or you don't want to get into that kind of relationship with these applicants, because once you do it, you're going to be doing it again, and that this is definitely an RDA. So I want you to, take the question back and think about it yourself. I mean, this has, an impact on future projects also. That's what I feel about it. Definitely, an RDA, unless the commission overrides that. And that's why we're here tonight.
Okay. One point I want to make is I think the previous swimming pool may have added all that asphalt around the outside, perhaps without having a permit for the asphalt. That doesn't seem like a very temporary structure to me. So what the homeowners are doing seems to me to be beneficial to the wetlands of getting rid of all that asphalt. But given that their contractor is there now, able to work now, can we accept this as a request for determination, and then can we make a vote on an RDA tonight? Or does that have to come back on May 11th to have the vote on the RDA?
He wouldn't make the May 11th meeting at this point. So this would be the second meeting in May. There was no time to, from when I contacted the applicant, there was no time to get the RDA application in for tonight's meeting. If that was the case, we would have done that. That would have happened. So it was a time constraint based on our requirements for applications. So he didn't lose any time by coming here tonight. This was the only option for tonight's meeting.
Okay. All right, so let's step back from the question of whether it's a permit or RDA. Are there any aspects of the project that any members of the commission have concern about? We've discussed pulling the patio back a little bit from the fence. We've discussed putting in a zone of natural vegetation along the fence. He's taking out all the asphalt. He's going to make the pavers permeable. Any other things people want to know? Brian.
Yeah, I guess I wish that there were earlier involvement, because when it came to replacing the fence, I would have liked to see something that was less of a problem for wildlife moving around. I mean, it's a solid wooden fence. I suppose there'll be some critters that can dig holes underneath and move, but it does seem to be somewhat of an obstacle. Also, I would have liked the gate to not be there. As we've seen so many times, a gate becomes an easy way for things going in the wetland that should not go in the wetland. However, at this point, that's a done deal. I do get the sense that the homeowner is trying to do the best he can with the hand that he's been dealt. I like the fact that, for example, he would like to see the path on the side of the house that could be used for kids going over to Joshua Eaton. He would like to see that reestablished, I guess is the word. So in general, I'm inclined favorably towards this, given those two concerns about the fence being more blocking and the gate being more tempting. So those are my thoughts.
Andrew, did you have your hand up?
I did. I'm just trying to wrap my head around this, like all of us. Again, my primary concern is the patio. I think it is an improvement over what was there, being this large deck and the above ground pool. So I do take that into consideration. Was it, Martha, did you say that we've agreed that we will move forward with permeable pavers? Is that,
I think they have said they will put in permeable pavers. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, that was the discussion we had. I don't know if you were still there at the time, Andrew, but Oscar, who's the mason, had a discussion about how to construct it to what the commission would deem to be more permeable, better, and he said that would be no problem for him.
okay, that's good to know. I mean, knowing that, I don't see a problem with it personally. If that's okay with the contractor and you, I think that would be my biggest concern.
Yeah, that was my concern too, because I technically don't know the difference, and he said it was no issue, and I'm, he's the one I'm paying lots of money to, so as long as he's comfortable, I'm comfortable.
Yeah, I don't know how the other commissioners feel, but yeah, I mean, if you came back with an RDA, it would be the same thing. So it's kind of an odd way of doing this. And I'm kind of newish to the commission still. So
Yeah, and I
I'm not
apologize,
sure.
by the way, if I didn't say it earlier. My misunderstanding of the process and the permitting requirements and all of that is my own, and Chuck has helped me understand it. And obviously, I think not that you get a lot of second tries at stuff like this in owning a property, but we would have followed a different process had I understood it better.
Well, at least you now know that if there are trees to take down or fences to repair or whatever, you contact Chuck and get his opinion. Any future work, call.
Yeah, and just to be clear,
the right direction.
I do want to address the fence. That was a permitted project, and there is technically, I'm not the fence builder. Tom Carley is the fence builder, but he did install it with a gap in order that wildlife could move within the fence. So that was one of the requests that was made when the fence went in, and that we had followed by the builder.
Right. And I'll just add that typically when people are replacing fences in kind, we don't, and I haven't been pursuing permits.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so let me wrap my head around this.
Can I add one more thing?
Yep.
Just like on Whittier Road, at the end of the day, whatever you guys decide, I'm going to need a plan or a sketch that's better than what we receive. So I can keep everybody honest.
Yeah.
We know where things are. We know the distances. We know. So if it's going to be, I wrote down some things: permeable pavers, vegetative buffer strip, and then it sounded like there was some talks about some shrubs. So I'd like to see a plan that showed all that, and then where the shrubs were being planted, and the size of the patio, and how far away from the fence it was, and the things I could measure to make sure they were in place. And I think the commission may want to see that final plan also that kind of shows those dimensions, 8 by 11, 23 by 14, whatever it is, with those rounded edges. You don't have to, I don't know if they're going to ask you to come back or they're just going to have you send it to me and I can send it to them, and then we'll follow up. I mean, it's a minor project permit. I guess the next step for non-compliance would be, a discussion and have you come back in. So.
Yeah, so when I apply for the minor project permit, my understanding is that's the opportunity to provide you a better pictographic example of exactly what we're putting in. Is that correct, Chuck?
Yeah, it's pretty loose with a minor project permit. I'm asking for a little bit step above that. So, something, so you might get some pushback on the plan. I might say, hey, I need some more measurements, or, I can't see where the spacing is here, or the, where the
I can
grading.
definitely provide, I think, especially now. So we didn't really know what we had before everything got kind of pulled up. I can provide you, obviously, as a part of that permitting process, a better pictographic example of the patio. That's not a problem. As far as the shrubs go, to be totally candid, we didn't have plans other than bark mulch. So the request was made on Monday that whatever we do plant be kind of local native vegetation, and we're happy to do that. We don't have vegetation plans at this point beyond, we know that it will be nice to put something in there eventually.
Yeah, so that's the vague gray area that's going to be hard to follow up on. So even if it's eventually that you're going to put those in, I would have a list to
Yeah.
choose from. And if you
Okay.
change it out later and you could just make some circles on the buffer strip
I
or
can
something
make,
like that.
yeah, I can make circles like where plantings would naturally fit, and then obviously link back to the website that shows what is acceptable, and that they would, whatever we put in would be on that list, if that's the right way to do it.
That list isn't exhaustive, so please use the internet also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what people often do for a planting plan is they put something like list that they're going to put in 6 shrubs, and they name the kind of shrub they're going to put in,
Sure.
and they say, 2 trees, and they might put in the names of the trees they're planning to plant.
Okay.
And, clearly you don't know that now, but before we're finished with this conversation, it would be good to have that.
It's
That
easy enough
record,
to
yeah.
imagine, given the spacing, it would be, 5 to 6 shrubs of a certain variety. That's easy enough for us to put in a request for a permit.
Yeah. And sometimes it's nice to alternate like 2 different kinds of shrubs rather than have everything identical.
Okay.
There was one house, I did a site visit that they had lavender alternating with something else that was a slightly larger shrub. I forget what the other one was.
Well, if lavender's an option, I already know which way my wife's going to go. So that's easy enough.
You don't hold me to it, but
all right, I'll check.
Yeah. And you might want to look back on the conservation website at current projects and look at planting plans and, get some ideas from that.
Sure.
If you don't want to spend money hiring a landscape architect after you're spending.
No,
all this
we're
other
out
money.
of money on this project, so I will be the landscape architect of shrubbery going
Right,
forward.
but a good place to get some ideas would be some other
Sure.
plant plans on other projects. And there are, I'm sure, posted on our website, some of those previous projects that we've approved.
That makes
And it
sense.
goes back several years. You should be able to find one. It's actually called Project by Year now.
Okay.
Okay. So if we were to continue this to the May 25th meeting and have him come back with an RDA at the May 25th meeting, and perhaps he could keep doing the work he's doing and we could approve it retroactively or do a negative determination at that point, which is what we are actually looking for to approve the project. Is that doable, or is that totally against the law to let him keep working while we wait for the RDA to catch up?
Yeah, I think we've done retroactive permits before, but only after the project was completed and didn't use them as an ongoing project. I think, my thought is, was it Andrew that said, if we're kind of getting the conditions that we would have anyways if we had an RDA. Again, I have to throw that back to the commission. It's up to you. At some point you're going to say, hey, I need a motion. You need a majority to follow that motion, and just see what everyone's thinking about. That's where it's at. I mean, it could be an RDA, I guess, retroactive, or it could be a minor project permit. And
For what it's worth, one of our challenges is we need to order all the materials, including the materials for projects 1 and 2, if you kind of go from the driveway in, which is contingent upon knowing that we can do project 3. And the labor associated with installing those materials, if we had to wait till the end of May, that would increase the scope of the project pretty considerably from a cost perspective.
Yeah, don't, I'll let Joe talk first because he got
Oh
his.
yeah, Joe's had his hand up, sorry.
Good. I wanted to agree with Andrew earlier, and then the conversation moved on. But since Chuck brought it up again, I will take this opportunity to say that I share Andrew's perspective of thinking of what I actually want to happen to protect the wetland here. And if I am seeing what I want to happen to protect the wetland here, namely the patio to be pulled back and fenced a little bit, to buffer up natural vegetation. Yes, if I'm, I want to take yes for an answer, basically, in terms of if you're giving,
I'm
if you're
I'm
doing a
trying to
project
give
that we
yes
want
as
you
an
to do.
answer too, so
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So, given that I don't think anything different will happen to protect the wetland based on whether this is an RDA or a minor project, I'm fine with being a minor project.
Okay. Is that a motion?
No, but I guess it could be. Do we need to discuss anything else before you ask for motion, or?
Is there any members of the public here that have not had a chance to speak?
There literally aren't any members of the public here.
Okay, just checking. I
Besides the
don't
applicant.
see the side screen. I haven't checked if there's anybody else down below. Chris,
I think
Yeah, Chris, could you put the screen down? Chris, could you bring, I don't know if you're doing it.
stop
You want me
sharing.
to stop sharing?
Yes,
please.
thanks.
Sorry.
That would help me a little bit better to see people's talk.
Yep, my apologies.
Yep. Nobody here, so there's no comments from the public.
I have a comment.
Yes.
And I think this is completely possible. I would like that sketch prior to me signing off on the building permit. So if you could get it to me on Monday, I could sign off on Monday. I don't think you could do it by tomorrow, but I'm in tomorrow.
I'd be surprised how fast. I think I told you when you were here. Believe it or not, the cost of materials at the lumberyard is going up 10 to 25% on May 1st. So our ability to tell the contractor to purchase these materials matters. So I can get you what you need as fast as I can get it to you.
So I encourage you to buy the materials because the two projects that you need them for are not changing. But I don't know if I can send it out to the commission and separately ask for comments. Or maybe I could just send it out to the chair and vice chair and ask for comments on it. But why don't you send it to me tomorrow and, err on the side of more detail than less. And we'll see if we can get this thing signed off on tomorrow, I guess, which is fine with me. I mean, it should be just a pretty simple plan, some dimensions, definitely some setback dimensions.
Sure.
Just a narrative on, I know you did that narrative, but if anything came up tonight and you have to add into it, then that.
No, I think
that
the
would
big
be-
thing, honestly, is the vegetation planning. And I can,
Mhm.
like I said, that's fairly straightforward. That's a spacing question. It's, 34 odd feet long. So plantings go every so many feet. I can do that pretty quickly.
So what did you say for the buffer strip? What was that, 5 to 6
It'll be
feet?
5 feet. And then I think it'll actually be wider at one end, but I can measure that tomorrow morning.
So that could be in there, or you could show that on the plan. Permeable pavers, it showed on the plan, you just said proposed patio, that would be proposed permeable paver patio. That's how it would be described. Native trees and shrubs, you could put the list somewhere.
Yep.
And then that's what I have. Does anyone think we need erosion control out there other than under Peter Rabbit's fence?
I think you were suggesting that he should put mulch sock down at the bottom of the silt fence because the silt fence isn't anchored in.
That's been done since Monday.
Ah,
Yeah. Does it, and it goes past the gate there?
It does.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So even now there was like sand that traveled in the rainstorms, like across underneath the fence gate.
Just to
and
be
then out
clear, that
into the
all
back.
predates the pool coming out. That was a big problem we were having with
Yeah.
pool water running through the sand, pulling the sand onto the, whatever you want, the fence line.
And then just a little bit of a narrative on how much of that, or what you're going to do for yard waste removal. And
Yeah,
and-
on that end, just to also be clear, we do pay someone to remove our leaves. The gates were put in as a recommendation by Carly Fence. The fence was put in before we moved in because we have a dog and needed the fence to actually keep him in the yard. So those gates were put in by his recommendation, but we don't use them for yard waste removal.
Okay. But as I'm hearing, I think that's still part of what we're going to be asking for.
What's that?
So the yard waste removal that's out there.
I'm sorry.
So
you mean to clean up whatever yard waste is out there?
yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, whatever. I mean, we've been here 3 years. The previous owner was here since 1976. So I don't know what the extent of removing.
We're not asking, yours or his. It's whatever looks like it hasn't turned into soil yet should be removed. And if you want me to meet your landscaper out there when he's doing the work, probably prior to the patio going in,
He won't.
I
be
could just
doing
point
any-
out some stuff.
Okay, yeah, he won't be doing any cleanup until after the patio project, just because we're gonna make a mess of the yard, obviously. But I can ask him to clean up any area beyond the fence, obviously within reason, because you don't want me manicuring the wetlands, right? So whatever area
Well-
beyond our fence, there is yard waste. Have him. clean
Sure,
up.
let's meet out there again and specifically talk about the work that needs to be done. And it might be to anyone's advantage to have the Bobcat, if that's what you're using back there. I don't know, it's everything, there's no machinery back there, I guess. I remember
Beyond the
that from
fence,
your
there's no
project.
machinery now.
Well, in the patio area, is there any machinery, like a Bobcat?
There's a Bobcat that was clearing the asphalt and the railroad ties.
Yeah, so to have that, just to be able to throw the material in the bucket would be a big advantage. So that would have to happen before the patio pavers went in. Up to you, but that's what I found most people do, is do it at the beginning of the project, not at the end.
So you're talking specifically about yard waste beyond the fence.
Right.
Sure. That's
Yep.
not a problem.
Is the Bobcat coming back at all, or are you done? You're not having
No,
it?
we're not done pulling the railroad ties out still. I mean, the whole yard is ringed in them basically, and they need to all come out, and apparently they're very heavy.
So I think that's what Chuck is suggesting, is if you have a Bobcat on site, you could also rake up some of the loose yard waste, get down to the dirt behind the fence and put that in the Bobcat scoop, and then you're not wheelbarrowing yard waste out of the yard.
Yeah, that's
Is
fine.
that correct, Chuck?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And again, we weren't out there specifically looking at the yard waste, so it may be different on the second site visit. And there might not be that much to remove. I remember whoever was with me, I dug through it and it didn't seem to be any more than like 3 or 4 inches of leaf litter. And it's usually like 1.5 to like maybe 2, like typically in the forest. And then it decomposes each year. So that's why you don't see it build up. If you put more than that on it, it starts to build up, because nothing decomposes, because it turns into a kind of like wet pages in a book.
So just to be clear, as far as I understand, my next steps to go forward with submitting minor project proposals for all 3 projects individually.
Now, it can be one minor project proposal for all of them. It doesn't have to be 3 separate ones. Minor
Okay.
project permits are online.
Yep.
And just upload pictures and
I'll add a
do the process.
pictographic picture of not only the patio, but the planting and the barrier. And then if that can, what's the turnaround time, just so I understand on approval, if all that's done tomorrow? Is that days, weeks?
I was hoping to finish it off on Monday.
Okay. All right.
And once you've submitted it, the only way to get, if we ask for revisions, I believe the only way to do that is to send them us, and we have to upload your revisions. So it may stay unapproved until we get everything we want. So just for that reason alone. Okay.
Sorry, I keep getting confused on this issue just because I need an approval on a project to actually go forward with ordering the materials and finally scheduling the labor, that sounds like that process may continue on indefinitely, the way you just said it. So
So so if you send me as much as you can tomorrow,
yeah,
I'll try to get back to you tomorrow with any changes that I need or any more detail that I need. And then I would be able to look at it again on Monday and make my final, call. If everything's good, I'll just approve it on Monday. So I don't think this would go any longer than Monday if we can both
Okay.
keep up our ends of the work schedule.
But Chris was saying he's hoping to purchase the materials before May 1st.
Yeah, I don't see that as an issue. Chris, I said it too many times already. You can purchase the materials. There's no issues. I don't know, it's a minor project permit. It means that it doesn't, they've given you that. So I don't think you're taking a big risk by going forward with the purchases. If you want to wait until Monday, that's fine. I don't think it's needed. I think we've basically approved your project tonight. We just need the details.
Does that make sense, Chris?
Wait until you hear the vote and then,
Yeah.
and then
Joe and Andrew have their
chime
hands
in.
up, so
Yeah.
I'm just trying not to.
All right, Joe first.
Thanks. Yeah, just to clarify, I think, because I'm sensing a miscommunication here. So it sounds like tonight, when, and I believe I can say when, even though we haven't voted yet, I can see where's it going. When we decide, when the commission tells Chuck to treat this as a minor project, then your approval is not a question of if, it's really a question of when, because
Okay.
if it was a question of if, it wouldn't be a minor project.
I understand. Okay, that
And
helps.
so once at that point, it's like, okay, so there is a question about when the paperwork will all be in order and the thing is approved, but you won't be taking a risk.
Okay.
of
Okay,
finding
that's exactly what I'm trying to understand better. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
And Andrew, was that the same thing you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that we're not going to stop this project.
Okay, no, honestly, that's my only concern, right? Is I wind up owning a lot of pavers and decking materials that I can't use. So,
No.
Understand, yeah.
got it. Thank
Okay.
you. All righty.
So can I have a motion to approve considering this a minor project permit?
So moved.
Yeah, seconded.
Okay, vote Andrew.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Ryan Bowe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Okay, you now have your vote, Chris.
Thank you all for your time.
Welcome
Sorry to
to
keep you so
go
late.
ahead and invest in everything you need to invest in and follow up the details with Chuck.
All right.
And maybe don't buy the plants yet.
Yeah, they'll be the last thing we buy. So anyway,
Right.
Thank you all. Appreciate the time. Sorry to keep you so late.
Oh, late? We're often here till midnight, so.
Oh, I'm happy I'm on this meeting then. Yikes.
Yeah.
It's past my bedtime.
All right, Chris, thank you.
Take care. Thank you all.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye. All right, 9:31. Okay, we're down to old new business. Chuck, what old new business do we want to attack today?
I have a couple things that are not on the agenda. It doesn't look like anyone's here for violation, so I want to talk about next steps on some of them, but Brian, I'm going to throw that to Brian for, we can both discuss that if needed. And I'd like to do the budget discussion if anyone has any suggestions, but that also can be pushed and just people send me suggestions. So I guess I'll start with that. So we have the opportunity to use $3,000 prior to the end of June 30th. I'm getting an estimate on a sign for Matera cabin, something that looks really nice, a little bit better than, the conservation signs that are out there now. And I got an estimate for the fence that's also at Matera. The fence came in at $4,500, more than the $3,000 that we're going to get. But I didn't finish talking to facilities about whether it was their responsibility to replace the fence or not. So there's some options out there. I did want to hear from the commission on what they thought the money was for. I guess at July 1st, there would be an opportunity based on the memo that Fidel sent around and I sent to you guys about requesting our share of what used to be, what ended up happening is the boards that had money went to a select board meeting and said it was unfair that they had to, they're used to getting their 1,500 and that it was unfair that now they have to, request even what they had already got. So they're going to get their 1,500 no matter what. And I think that brings the total down to around 10,000. So now everyone's back in the pool again. I think there's 5 committees. And we have an opportunity to request our share of that money, all of the money, some of the money, however it works. It's up to the select board to decide on who gets what and how much of it. It wasn't based on just being fair. It was based on, I guess, winning over the select board with a good project. So I had been trying to put together some quotes. And if we had a quote that was more than 3,000, and then we anticipated using some of next fiscal year's money, we could encumber the money for this year in a PO and use it next year also. So that is entirely possible. So I guess we're not limited to the 3,000 in that respect. But again, we would probably be back to something like a $5,000 sign, which is kind of crazy, but a nice sign for Matera Cabin with all those things that are going on up there makes sense. And it is, it'd really be nice to have something, finally that everyone can spot as they're driving down the road. So anyways, that's all I have. I'm just wondering if anyone has any suggestions of where you would spend some money if you finally had it. So I heard from Martha that she thought that painting Matera Cabin was a good idea. And I thought that was a good idea also, but I don't know if that would fall in with what money we're getting this year and or next year. So I did talk to Fidel about that a while ago. And I asked him if that would be something that we would bring to town meeting. He didn't think so. So there has to be some other process he was thinking about. So I'm going to get an estimate on staining Matera Cabin and painting the underside of the porch, the porch there. As someone painted it, it was milk paint or something. There's something on it. It has some sort of white paint that's practically gone. And so that's the estimate I'm going to get for that area.
So we had talked about doing something about the signs around town, the conservation signs. And then after that, Kathy Kelly from Trails said that she had already arranged with the Boy Scouts to spruce up the signs. In some cases, just painting them. In some cases, actually replacing them. So assuming that is actually going to happen, then we wouldn't need to spend any money on it. So I don't know if that's been raised in the Trails Committee or not, but so that's one possible project that I think would have some value.
So we're not talking about the Matera Cabin sign. That is a
right.
Miserable sign. It doesn't rise to the stature of the Matera Cabin ever, and certainly not these days. So I'd like to replace that sign. My second sign that I would like to replace would be the Pearl Street parking lot sign, which is part and parcel with the Matera Cabin parking problem with the community garden, and to identify that spot. So that might be a sign that could be afforded with some of this money. But the rest of the signs are Scout projects, and I like Kathy Kelly's idea, and I like the fact that she initiated that.
No, I agree. I just didn't know if that was finally determined or not.
I haven't heard anything about it. Anyone and everyone is welcome to the next Trails Committee meeting. I'll send that out when actually I have the agenda. I can send out the agenda to everyone tomorrow.
So another informational thing that I think might be useful is some kind of I'm gonna call it a sign, but I'm picturing, one of those angled display boards that would have information about the Conservation Commission, what it does in the town, even perhaps just information about how much acreage and how many properties or whatever, but just something there to inform people who are interested in looking at it, what we do, especially since they got approval to use conservation land for the community gardens.
And where would that go? You
I-
don't mean a sandwich board, right?
No, I'm, when you go to national parks or whatever, and they have these informational little stands where they'll have maybe a 4x6 or a smaller placard that has information about that particular park or that view from the park or that edifice you're standing in front of, whatever. So one of those kind of things. And I was thinking it could go down near the parking lot, near the right-hand side where the ramp goes up. I'm just assuming that that's going to be used as much as the stairs on the far side.
So something in that area. I would need you just to show me something or get an estimate on what your, I can't get an estimate if I don't, but if you brought me something that I could work with, I would be happy to get an estimate on that.
Okay, yeah, I'll look to see if I can find an image of one somewhere, and if not, then I'll use my tremendous artistic skills to draw something.
And Brian, I like your idea. I'm wondering whether we want it to be more like a cork board with a plexiglass hinged door that locks in front of it, and we put temporary papers inside and we can change the information rather than a permanent sign that the information is there for the rest of our eternity.
So just a little bit about that. I don't know if this matters, but there's a kiosk at the trailhead at Matera. There's going to be a kiosk at the first tier for informational for the gardeners. So maybe, I'm just wondering where this is going to be. And those, we just looked into those. So those can be like $1,500, $700, and smaller ones like 16 by 20 by 32 are about $300, $400. So they're reasonable.
And when you say kiosk, you're talking about one of these bulletin boards with a plexiglass door.
Yeah, I think that's what it sounded like you're talking about.
Okay.
So like the one that's at the end of Stroud, where the water treatment plant used to be, that's where the newest kiosk went in, right? That's your picturing?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, they're all supposed to be very similar. We're trying to keep it standard throughout the town. So hopefully it's not too different than others like at Matera Cabin. I know the green 4x4 post on either side, big plexiglass, that in different sizes is pretty much the standard that we're doing. The one for the community garden is going to be more of a like a wood color, light brown.
So I think, so I'm fine with that idea in general. I think we have to think through overloading people. If there's one there for conservation, and then 10 feet further on, there's one for the community gardens, at some point, people are going to stop reading. But, another useful thing you could do there is have information about Matera Cabin, and the history of it and everything,
Yeah, how to rent Matera Cabin. Maybe people are not as aware that you can just rent it for private functions as they should be.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it from a salesmanship perspective, but what goes on it, we can talk about. The question is, what do we want it to look like and where would it go? But
yeah, keep in mind, it would be, we do rent the cabin with the recreation department and the conservation commission. We do like some of the environmental stuff we do is the Ipswich River Watershed Association, and for their stream surveys and things like that, they use the cabin. teachers use the cabin and whatnot, but signage inside the cabin with all that information or outside by the door
Outside,
some-
so actually.
would make a
now
lot
that-
of sense.
And now that I've heard about there going to be one for the community gardens, I'm thinking maybe across the parking lot near the entrance of the walk that goes down to the cabin itself, some kind of a informational thing there on the cabin with a section of it being reserved for the Conservation Commission in general. And again, what goes on it, we can discuss.
Great. Okay, so signs, sign money, sign estimates. Great. And then materials for fixing signs. I think somehow there has to be a certain amount of money. So when the scouts do the work, we can give them the money to buy the material.
So when I was talking to Kathy about that, she said that Trails was going to give the scouts the cost for materials if they were going to replace a sign. Do you know if that actually has gone through or not?
I know that it's not in their budget. And so what I know is it's not identified in their budget. I'm not sure that, and I heard Fidel say one time that you need to stick to what your budget says. And then another time he felt like that it was okay to, work within the budget to make accommodations. So they have a maintenance line item. It could probably fit into that quite nicely.
Yeah.
And again, Kathy's the chair. As long as she gets a vote on it, I think it would be fine. If it fell in that maintenance category and everyone else felt like that's what they wanted to spend it on.
But I guess either way, if Trails actually came up with the money, great, because then we don't have to. But if they didn't, and the scouts needed some money for materials, I think that's a reasonable expenditure as well.
Well, I want to, whether there's something for it or not, I want to have some money to have some options with. And that money could be for material. It could be for a scout project if they come in and they want to request some money, or it could be who knows what. Let's say the Trails Committee has used up all their money and the plexiglass and a kiosk broke. I want to use it for that. So I'm thinking like $500, is miscellaneous, maintenance.
So when we talked the last time, it was probably like 2 a.m. by then. One of the things that came up was a way to solicit donations. And you had said there's no account for that or anything. What would it take to get an account set up? Does that go through Fidel or what?
Yeah, so I asked Bob Lalashore when he was here how that happens, and Sharon Angstrom chimed in, and what needs to happen. It has to be approved by the town manager. So we cannot get an account unless the town manager allows us to get a gift account. I feel it's very odd that the only group in town that doesn't have one, this is what Sharon told me, is the Conservation Commission. So even DPW has a gift account for some reason.
So what would it take to ask Fidel? Is that as simple as Anika asking him, or you asking him, or something else?
As simple as me asking him. Yeah, it seemed to be simple. I thought we had permission. I thought we could have got the account already based on what Bob said, but it hasn't been set up yet by Sharon. Maybe I could just circle back around with Sharon and ask her if we have permission to move forward, or is it something that she wants to ask Fidel, or I need to ask Fidel. So that can be set up. Just remember, every donation that goes into that account has to be approved by the select board. And expenditures coming out of the account have to be approved by them too.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
right.
it's either, and I'll make sure I got that right. It's either, I don't think it's Fidel. I think it's the select board, but it could be the town manager. But
Okay.
I'll get the detail on that.
Awesome. So if you look into that, I had 2 more suggestions that I thought of that we might put down for possible money if we had money. One is, do we need a sign for the Grove Street parking lot when that gets built? That might be not this year's budget, but next year's budget, or is that already budgeted for somewhere else?
So that's not a good idea.
Okay,
That's not our land. That's not a project that's going to be done this year. And the Conservation Commission and the, that's more likely going to be part of the entire build out of that project, that they would have a sign.
okay,
But it's not it's town forest. I don't know whose land it is. It's more likely to be town forest land. So it's their responsibility for the sign. We could
Okay.
donate a sign, but it doesn't seem, we have so much deferred maintenance. I don't think that would be a good spot to spend this little bit of money. Sorry, but that's how I feel.
Joe.
I was gonna say, I believe the town, if I'm trying to recall what Karen Herrick was saying, that our representatives at the state secured an earmark of something like $150,000 for development of the Grove Street entrance. I'm pretty sure they can afford a sign, and we should not. Yeah, I'm sure there's a better use of what little funds we're going to have the first time we ever have any funds at all.
And,
Okay.
Weston and Sampson are working on plans.
Good.
Cool.
And my next thought is, I think it's really embarrassing to be standing around at a meeting with Chuck and a bunch of members of the DPW, and Chuck's wearing a jacket that says Town of Boxford. So I don't know how much it would cost to buy Chuck a Reading DPW safety vest or jacket or whatever, but I think that safety clothing for our conservation administrator ought to go in the budget.
Well, I think you're missing something, Martha. He actually would need two, because he has a lightweight one for the summer, and then he has a warmer one for the winter, and we have to make sure we do it right.
So another good suggestion. I didn't realize you were that. Yeah, people always say, "Oh, hey, what's up with Boxford?" We're really connected. There's so many people that know Boxford and Reading. It's very, it's like it's a conversation starter. This is not an appropriate account for that. I could buy anything that I need to do my job out of the state wetland funds.
Okay.
If I had to. I would just need approval by the Conservation Commission that they thought it was an appropriate expense, and I could do that. But again, this is not. Like ink and whatever, and a reflective safety gear. That's certainly part of the things that I could buy with the state fees.
Good. Okay. Good to know.
Well, given that, I make a motion that Chuck be ordered to buy some Reading gear.
I don't think ordering is quite the verb you're looking for. But,
You're gonna have to order. Look, I've had that coat for like 12 years. It's still in good shape. What if I get a patch?
I would be, I appreciate the, fiscal responsibility there. Slap a patch on it instead. It is a nice jacket. 12 years old? Wow.
Oh, it was like the first thing I got. They were so impressed with me. Even my boss got a jacket.
I don't take my jacket out in the woods as you probably take that thing, and I often, and it's definitely not in good shape.
Well, all right. So if you are able to buy a new jacket when that one wears out, I'm happy with you wearing the Boxford jacket until you need a new one. I'm glad to know there is funding for that. Along the same lines, when your tape measure fails, are you able to buy a tape measure the same way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes and no.
I really wish we had the forethought to have Brian bring his tape measure out when we were considering the patio and the fence at that previous house we just visited, because I didn't measure how far away from the wetland line.
And actually, Joe has one too now, so we are building up a supply.
And don't buy augers either. I have 3 augers. One is one I used up at UNH, so that's not available. But if anyone wanted to have an auger in their car that always goes on site visit, just to kind of probe around, I have 2 spares. And
Good to know.
as long as I got them back, I would be happy to have them out there somewhere on every site visit, just so you could just start wondering and looking, causing problems.
I like that idea.
Okay. All right, so are we done with the budget part of this discussion? Can we move on to something else?
Yeah, I'll just continue to get estimates and
Through this meeting.
I'll just continue to get estimates and then we can just have a list of estimates and then approve projects. But we have to be ready for like right at July 1st. And that money was supposed to be like $5,000, but it's going to be less. So probably another 3 or something like that. So I think it's a good idea. And if it's all spent on Matera, that's fine. If it's spent at Pineville, which is our pet project this year, trying to get that thing off the ground, then that would be fine too. So I'm going to move on, if that's all right.
Yes, please.
So I want everyone to look at this, this here and see that this tree right here is not part of this tree in back. So this tree right here goes up and both branches go out in this direction. So it's getting kind of confusing with this tree in back of it and this limb here, but this one ends about here and all the weight is in this direction. And this person who lives at 102 Haverhill Street, we've worked with before. This is that house that Mark Hall built, and it was really close to the wetlands. And, you know, they just got their certificate of compliance. And they've taken down other trees also, but this is a tree that they feel is dangerous. I think that I heard from two arborists, one from I don't know, and the other one from Arbor Care, whoever the first one was, I forgot their name, but they're both well known. They both call me a lot, but both of them said that this tree is a problem because all of the weight is leaning out on the road, and they're concerned that it's going to fall over. And it was confirmed by Bob Moses from Arbor Care, who said that he was concerned about that also. There's some other trees back here that they want to take, but they're going to wait on those trees because they're not showing signs of being dead. And there was an issue with getting so many tree permits all at once, and maybe they were talked out of getting this one, but they felt like they couldn't back away from this one here. So they will plant another tree for this tree that they're removing in this area. They were hoping that you would give them permission to move forward with that.
This is the house that was recently put a fence all the way around the yard, right?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. Yeah.
I know which house we're talking about. I'm surprised if that tree was that dangerous that it was not taken down when they cleared the land to put this house up. It's only been 2 years.
You know, I mean, the trees are really close to the edge of the property line, and there's going to be more and more trees that come up with this one. I mean, they really dropped this house in around the trees. And I'm not surprised. I mean, when I look out there, there's a whole bunch more that could probably have some sort of claim to being dangerous. Yeah. You know, I can't show you. There's like a picture of this. If you drive down Haverhill Street heading toward Cam's Curtis Guild, you'll notice this tree leaning way out, like over the sidewalk. And it looks like it's standing straight up here, but it's not. I can't get the angle, you know, here. So,
okay.
So as far as having an arborist tell you this dangerous tree, I've had 2. And as far as covering the replanting policy, the applicant said that they would. So it's more or less, you know, it's up to the commission to agree to this, because they're over the 4-tree limit every 3 years for administrative approval. So we allow, you can use the tree policy once every 3 years to take down 4 trees, up to 4 trees with administrative approval. Outside of that, you need to file an RDA. But this one, I would say, is a danger tree and should come down more immediately than not, from what I'm hearing. And so waiting for our next meeting in a month wouldn't work for this tree. So.
Okay. All right. So can I have a motion to approve allowing the homeowners to remove this tree at 102 Haverhill Street?
Before you do that, is there some way that we could ensure that the planting that they did would be appropriate planting, so some high value tree, that's a big tree that would be coming down. So something substantial in its place.
In height, or you're talking about like
in the species, so it would grow into a meaningful tree.
I could certainly offer some suggestions to the applicant. I think that they were okay with planting a tree, and they were going to go with native. Do you have any suggestions for these high value trees? It's like a chestnut tree, a high value tree, because it's big and it has nuts.
And the one I always think, of course, is an oak.
Same, big and has the,
exactly.
Yeah, the nuts, yeah. And they pretty much withstand a lot. I would guess like a white oak would be really nice too. I mean, those take a beating, and they're very stringy. So when a branch falls down, it's likely just to be that branch instead of having to take down the whole tree.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 3. If you want me to suggest one of those 3 or something else that has nuts and height.
I mean, I'd like to see that. I don't know the soil there. I don't know if they would even prosper.
Well, that's an oak tree.
The one that's coming down is an oak?
Yeah, there's oak trees in here. There's chestnut trees, and there's maple trees towards the back, because it's the wet areas back here. So red maple in the back.
Mm-hmm.
There's some pines, like that's a pine, the tall one. The rest are deciduous. So I think that you're picking what's there, and so I guess it can do well there.
All right.
Yeah, I was going to say, given that we know it's wetland all around there, possibly a swamp white oak rather than just an ordinary white oak. That's another option that would still have nuts and be an oak.
A
Okay.
so-called high value habitat tree.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion?
For me, I need, I'm assuming that's an approval. I'll have them do a tree permit online, so we have a record of this and we can track it. Secondly, there's
Did we vote on that, or do we need to vote on that?
I'd like a vote, yeah, because we're outside the policy.
Right. So is there any more discussion before we vote? Okay, can I have a motion?
I'll move that the commission allow the homeowners at 102 Haverhill Street to remove the tree indicated here by Chuck Taroni.
I second that.
And replace it with a high value tree.
Yes, right, and replace with a yes, high value habitat tree.
Thank you. Okay, let's vote.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Okay. Unanimous. Did we lose everyone? Did we
All
lose me?
right, thank you. We're good. I just want to pop one other thing in just to remind people that May 1st is this Town Forest Day. I don't know how much publicity there's been about it, but I picked up the postcards that Andrew worked on, and I picked up the brochures that my students from 6 years ago worked on. And Chuck had them all printed, and I now have a stack of them that I'll bring on May 1st. And Nika and I will be there supervising the table. If anybody wants to come, you're more than welcome.
I'll be there.
Cool. And I understand there will be some other people there from other groups as well at the new fire circle near Wood End School. So,
I won't be there, but I'm going to be working on a trail. I'm building a boardwalk on Saturday and then preparing some lumber for that on Friday. So I brought Brian to that trail, but that name of that trail escapes me. Brian, do you remember which one that they're repairing?
Pine
was-
Ridge.
Is it the Pine Ridge, where the Boy Scout stairs are?
No, that's Spinny Ladder.
Spinny ladder?
It's the name of the stairs. I don't remember the name of that trail, but you're talking about where it goes up the ladder, then down and to the left, and there's 2 boardwalk sections there now.
And that's where the Trails Committee is going to be working. They're hoping to replace up to 20 feet of boardwalk, but they're only taking off the treads, installing 2 additional floor joists in between those because the span was too much. It was almost like 4 feet. So it was very springy in the center. And of course, so they're going to add 2 more on both sections and then put new Trex composite decking on it. And that's the project.
And
So-
when on Saturday are you going to be working on that?
I think they're starting at 9:30 at the gate. I have, and people are gonna drive in. There's gonna be 4 cars with the materials that are able to drive in, and everyone else has to walk in. So 9:30 probably till, these things usually last till 2 or so.
So where are they
But
going to drive to, Chuck?
I think they could probably get right to the ladder, to that spinny ladder thing.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you think they could get there?
Oh, they could get there. I'm just thinking that the other end of that trail is probably an easier trek in. It's certainly flatter.
I'm going to tell you this much: they're not listening to me. So they know
Well,
the
there you go.
area. They know the area better than me. I'm just going to unlock the gate, and I would say that's, from what I know, that's a viable option. But if they have, I mean, like I said, they know that place like the back of their hand, so they're good. But that's where we're going to be. If anyone wants to look for us on Saturday, just come by and say hi and see what we're doing. And okay. Anything else?
Where is that again? Where is this trail?
Okay. So if you go into the compost area and you walk straight through the compost area, and then you're going to take a left. You can't go no other way, but there's a left, and I call it going over the causeway because there's water on either side of you. And it's kind of like a long straight road. Then as soon as you get on the other side of that, to the right are those stairs.
Okay.
It's like right there, and just go up those stairs and follow that trail in it, and you'll be right where we are. And of course, there's probably going to be cars parked right there.
Yeah. All right.
So
If it's what I'm thinking of, and I wanted to ask, but on the topic of the navigation, if you're coming from the water treatment plant site, there's a different, so you're going west-east there, you go over a different causeway, but you've got to roughly the same point, continue east to get there as well, I believe, right?
And that's how I would go. Is the way
Yeah,
Joe was
that's
just
what,
saying.
okay.
yeah, I went that way, and one of the Trails Committee had to come and find me. So
So Chuck's navigation skills are gonna dictate.
No,
how
I
he's
have
telling
great
us to go in.
navigation skills. I'm walking through the woods. I'm like, these guys must be making some noise somewhere. I couldn't hear them. I couldn't, kept walking further and further away. Anyways, but no, I do have, walking through the woods my whole
Well,
life.
and especially Chuck, where you said that it's gonna be happening on Saturday. Compost is open on a Saturday. I don't think you may want to be walking through there. So it'd be easier to go down the way Joe was saying, past where the treatment plant used to be and over the causeway and bear to the right.
Yeah, you could always, yep. Okay. So that's that. I think it's going to be 2 days. The brochures came out great. We put a lot of time into them. Andy put a lot of time into them. Martha, I thought all that stuff is great. And you should think about, for what family day, and using them again, maybe making some more different stuff. And then we're going to have a whole bunch of literature that we can hand out. My next item on this list is I need a site visit. Does someone have something to say?
Yeah, sorry. If I can, on the subject of Town Forest Day, I did, let's see, I'm trying to remember who, I think I copied Martha and Anika on an email that I had with Kathy Zeke reached out about potentially using the Conservation Commission table at Town Forest Day to distribute information about the community garden, given that it is, of course, on conservation land. I said I thought that would be reasonable. I think Martha and Nika agreed, but just heads up that that's what we're planning on. So I think they may also be, I know Climate Advisory will also be there. Community Garden is also connected with the Climate Advisory Group in various ways. They might.
Actually, the last I heard, they're gonna have 8 or 9 tables. from
Wow.
different
That's
groups.
awesome.
That's what Megan was saying. I don't know if that's a final number, but something like
I
that.
can't even figure out what the 9 are, but I'm looking forward to finding out.
I don't know either.
Let's just hope somebody comes to our party.
Yeah.
I've heard people talking about it, so I have some hope here about that.
Okay, yeah, the
what time does it
table I'm
start?
bringing is big enough that there certainly is room for it. It's noon to 3 on May 1st.
Right.
And where should people park if they wanted to go there?
Wood End School.
Wood End School. Okay, great. All right. Anything else? I have something else. So let me stop the screen share and share it again.
You aren't currently screen sharing.
Yep. Okay. I'm trying to get rid of some of this stuff. Okay, here we go. So not screen sharing. Okay. So I'll just go on to 572 Summer Ave. We need to set up a site visit. It's time to look at the site. The way we left it on 572. This is item number 8. That we were going to set up a site visit. I think, possibly before the next meeting might be good. But if we're waiting for things to bud out, it might be a little early. But you've seen the skunk cabbage out already. Maybe other things will be out in 2 weeks. So completely up to you, but we need to set that site visit date, and I need to get back to the homeowner because they're the ones that really are anxious for this to be set up. This is also Maureen Harold. Any dates come up where people, do you want to do it before the next meeting or the following meeting? So the next meeting is going to be the 11th. So that would probably be something like the 10th or the 9th or the 8th for the commission, or we could push it to the next meeting and that would be the 25th, and you would have the 22nd, 23rd, or 24th to look. It's all about getting those plants to kind of grow and start to leaf out, so it makes it real easy to figure out where things are. So that's May. End of May is a good time. Okay. So let's go to the end of May. All right. I think it's getting late.
You were originally saying the 9th or the 10th.
I had that as a suggestion, but I personally think it might be too early
Okay,
if you want to see a lot of vegetation. So then I said, let's go the 22nd, 23rd, or 24th. I'd be available on the 23rd or 24th.
okay.
So I assume this would be a morning visit?
Could be anything right now.
The
Yep.
morning of either the 23rd or the morning of either the 23rd or 24th would work for me.
The
All other
morning-
things being equal, I picked it.
The morning of the 23rd would work for me, not the morning of the 24th.
Okay, let's do the morning. And what is morning for people? Is it 8:30, 8 o'clock, 9?
Any of that.
Andrew, what's your constraints?
8:30, I just have to drop my kids off at school. I think Joe's probably the
Yeah,
same, so
I think-
8:30 is good time for me.
8:30, great.
Yeah, Andrew and I
8:30
have this. Andrew and I have the same plans on Monday mornings.
Okay,
I go to work in the
so-
office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday now, but Monday morning I do drop. I do drop off.
Okay, so-
8:30 on the 23rd.
Okay, Monday, the 23rd, we're talking?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that works for me too. So it sounds like enough of us can do it.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm showing you 34 Deborah Drive. This is a site where we recently approved this, and part of the, what we approved was an access door in the front and an access door on the side, and a pathway from the side access door kind of around. It connects to the, so they're building something in this area, but I'm using this to tell you. So they're building an addition out in this area, but on the addition, so now I'm just gonna use this. They're putting a door on this side and a door in front of the new driveway. That was rejected by the zoning commission. So, so I talked to the building inspector, and he highlighted this area that says any new entry to a accessory apartment shall be located on the side or the rear of the proposed dwelling. So the front entrance doesn't meet their requirements, so they have to put an opening on the back. Again, it will be over here on the existing, the proposed addition. But they needed to get approval for that change, and I wanted to bring it to the commission. They're not adding 3 doors. It's still going to be 2 doors. They're not going to put in a walkway. They're going to do a concrete pad. So the door doesn't bother us at all, because that doesn't stick out, extend, or anything like that. It would really only be the walkway. And that walkway is as minimal as it possibly could. It's just a concrete pad. If they want to have a walkway coming around to the driveway, I told them they're going to come in for a plan change. They agreed. So with that explanation, does the commission feel like this is fine to approve administratively? Did I describe it okay? Do you want me to draw it?
We visited this place in the snow, right? And
You have to visit it twice.
they had a second driveway planned with a walk around to the side at the front. And are you saying they need a second door now?
They've always had 2 doors.
Okay.
They had a door, here,
Mhm.
and then they had a door here.
Chuck,
Okay.
I pulled up the plans we approved, and there's a 2-foot wide drip trench in the front and no door marked in the front.
Okay, but there was a door.
So-
So that's what I was told today. There was a door in the front.
There was originally a door in the front, and when we did the site visit, the homeowner told us that the planning board told them they couldn't put the door in the front, it had to go on the side, and that's why it's where you drew the bigger circle. So,
Yeah,
and then there was going to be a path around the side of the building for the walkers and wheelchairs to be able to travel around to that door.
I recall there being confusion about this at the meeting too, but that sounds about right, Martha.
Yeah.
So there's the path that was supposed to be in there, okay?
Yeah.
So now they're eliminating this door here,
Okay,
per the regulations. And they need to put one back here somewhere, wherever it is. I'm not really, I don't think it matters for conservation. And then they're just going to put a very small patio or landing, which is going to be a concrete landing in front of the door.
okay. So all we're doing is approving adding that door at the back with one small pad to step out the door onto.
Yep. And this stuff goes away.
Okay. The red line doesn't go away. They still need to be able to get in that side door, don't they?
It's the side. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's only the front door that goes away. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So they're going to have a path around to the side door and not a path all the way around to the back door. They're just going to have a step out into the backyard.
So far. I mean, I just said, spur of the moment, they want to get going. It needed approval. This is what they needed to move forward. If they want to put a path in, they'll come to the commission more formally and make that request.
Okay. All right. That's fine with me. Any other opinions?
It's fine with me. I mean, the wetland is actually back where that second shed is. So having a door there is probably pretty safe from the wetland back by those bushes and also at the angle where we saw the drop off where they had filled. So fine by me.
Do we need to vote on it?
You can if you want. Yeah, it's an approval. You can vote to allow me to approve this administratively.
Okay. Can I have a motion for that?
Move to the commission let the conservation administrator approve the additional rear door in the project 34 Deborah Drive administratively.
Second.
And vote?
Andrew Gibbon in favor.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Anything else, Chuck?
That's all I have, and it's just to the violations. And I'll let you know that I never heard anything from Market Basket, and it was George Danis.
Yeah.
So
That's a little confusing on your list. The last word on that list of violations says Danis. Is that the name of the person?
yes,
And is General Way the address? And that's all about Market Basket?
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. And
That's
all
the road, the entrance road to Market Basket is called General Way.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So if I can just jump in for a second, one of the things that Chuck and I were talking about, I think it was Monday when I got back. So is rather than pushing forward and opening new cases, my word, there's time for us to start looping back to some of the ones who haven't responded. And so that's the plan for the focus upcoming, and General Way is one of those. It's a prominent one because it is Market Basket. There's a few other ones. There's one on Hanscom where the homeowner we sent the letter to actually said, it's not us, it's next door. So there's things like that we need to follow up on. And
I think we could get rid of Dean and 14 Dean and just look at 30 Chequesset. I mean, there's a couple. I mean, we should.
Yeah, I'd
34.
like to go back out and have a site visit at 14 Dean and see what it looks like now. That was the place where they had the really tall wall and they were going to terrace the wall.
yes,
We haven't been back there since then.
yeah, I'd like to go
Want me
back.
to set it up for the same day that we're doing the other one, which is
The 23rd.
23rd? Yeah.
That's all right with me.
Sounds good to me.
Works for me.
Yeah, I would like to see if it's quite the big fortress that I remember it being.
Okay. And what about, at some point, we should check out the survival of the trees at Jim Castellano's property,
1503 Main
Main
Street.
Street. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can, but he's reached out to me and said that he wants to start the process of the certificate of compliance. And I just wrote back to him and said, this is what we're looking for, you know, make sure there's no erosion, make sure it's unmowed around the trees, and wait a little bit longer for things to just bud out and grow a little bit. That would be my suggestion. But I need the as-built plans. I need, so it's 2 properties. So I need the as-built plans. I need Form 8A. I need the fees, and I need a request letter. And I just said that if you sent them to me before, send them again. You know, it's fine. You know, obviously he's not going to send the money again, but I haven't heard from him after I sent that out there.
Yeah. And I'd really like not just to see that it's not mowed under the trees, but that the shrub layer has survived. Because, you know, just tall, weedy grass is not what we were asking for. We were asking for a bunch of shrubs to be planted. And
no, I understand that. But to see the shrubs were planted, but that herbaceous layer was part of it. And to see all of it, you got to start by not mowing.
Right. Yeah. So I want to see those things surviving. And I'm concerned that they've been mowed so many times, they may not survive. So we want to see them come back.
So I think the people in the back, I think it was like Alpha Cobb in the back, they, in my opinion, you could look at that and be able to you know, take a serious look at that without, you know, they don't have to run in tandem. So you could approve the one in the back. If you felt it was there, I think that you would find that it was pretty much in compliance, and then still have the front one also to become into compliance if the shrub isn't there and the herbaceous layer isn't there and they haven't stopped mowing and there's erosion. But Jim says all that is all set. I haven't been there, although I've been to Matera a lot, and from Matera it looks fine. I know there was some concern about it being mowed, but hopefully that's not going to happen this season. I don't think anyone started mowing until like this weekend, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not even this weekend. Not this weekend, I mean last weekend.
Okay, so we'll wait and hear what Jim does about that. And one other thing I want to mention is the Lot A Main Street, the trees have come down, and I've been looking as I drive by. I haven't stopped and gotten out. And I don't see any erosion control down, but I see a big pile of hay bales. So I don't remember approving hay bales to be used for erosion control. I thought they were going to use mulch socks, but do you know anything about that, Chuck?
Yeah, so he talked to me about that. I don't know, Joe, did you want to finish up with 13?
I did want to comment on 1503 Main Street if I could.
Sure.
So actually, I wanted to ask, Chuck, have you been in touch with the homeowner, who of course is not Mr. Castellano, it's Mr. Cleary, and Mr. Mercado, I think are the two.
No,
homeowners?
I haven't.
Okay, all right, because they're, I suspect that they are the ones we need to talk to in order to keep the lawnmower at bay, or the landscaper's lawnmower at bay. So
I don't mind reaching out to them.
I haven't. Yes,
I guess my recollection was you had a contact information.
I did have email contact with them. I think I gave them my email address when I met one of them at a site visit, an individual site visit a long time ago. And I don't think I've corresponded with them since November. As you recall, our meetings in November and December were bad even by 2 weeks ago standards. So we didn't end up discussing them for several months, and they sort of fell off the radar. If you like, I could reach out to Mr. Cleary, or Chuck, would you think it's more appropriate for you to do so?
Oh, please, yeah. I'm perfectly happy if you want to take that on.
All right,
Just start that conversation.
I will restart the conversation specifically saying it's, it's lawnmower season, please don't. And because I suspect that he is the person who can help us get what we want there more so than Mr. Castellano.
And speaking about it's spring, please don't. I always think of Oak Street. And Bob Carboni's place, because the new homeowners are there. But I don't want to get off the subject.
Okay, all right, sorry. Thanks for letting me follow up on 1503, and I will.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. I think just
Yeah.
a little introduction, and then I'll be able to take it from there.
Sure, I'll yes, resurrect that thread. So, okay, yes, Lot A Main Street, please, Martha.
Okay, just that question, what do you know about what's going on there, Chuck?
Yeah, so in the order of conditions, it does say straw bale.
Okay.
And there was a big discussion at the counter and mulch sock. There was a big discussion at the counter with Mike Salamone, and he didn't, I don't think he cared what he was going to do. But then as he looked into it, he felt like it would be a cost savings for him to install everything, and he couldn't drag around like the mulch sock and have someone make it or have it dropped off and him pull it into place. So I think he got straw bale, which is what we should be using, not just hay bale. And he's going to put that around himself and set that up. And I have a meeting to be out there Monday to see this finished off. So they were allowed to take down the trees, but then put up the erosion control. And then his next step is going to create an access road.
Okay.
So,
all right. Good. Anything else? We are 1 minute before 10:30.
I think Andrew has something. Yeah, there he goes.
Oh, good job, Martha. Thank you.
Right. Can we have a motion to adjourn till next 2 weeks from now?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
In favor.
All right.
Unanimous.
10:30 on
Okay.
the dot. Nailed it.
Okay. All right. See any of you on Sunday who show up.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
might even see you on Saturday, although it might be, I'd probably be best I can do is probably take my kids on a walk through the woods and wave to Chuck as we go by.
Oh, so this would be a great idea. So we had no pictures to put in our annual report or anything else. If people just could take some pictures this weekend of things, that would be great.
Good idea.
Cool.
Good idea.
All right. Thank you.
Hey,
Yep.
good night.
Good night, everyone.
Right.
Good night.